American entertainment. At the start, Taylor Swift writes a song about me. Hey, fanfic family. So glad to see you here again to continue this incredible adventure. As always, kindly remember, this story is 100% fiction. So don't go looking for dimensional portals in your closet. All rights to this fantastic novel belong to the original author. We're just your humble narrators of epic tales. Are you enjoying the fanfic? Show it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and dropping us a like. And if you're impatient for more exclusive content, our Patreon is your happy place. Chapter 1 Déjà Vu. Are you experiencing a kind of illusion, an illusion of memory? Everything before you seems familiar. Those sensations of touch, perception, and hearing seem to be a replay of the past. You might take this as the emergence of memories from a past life, or even proof of the existence of the soul. Déjà vu was first proposed by the French philosopher Émile Boileau in 1876. Carl Jung considered it a concrete manifestation of the collective unconscious, believing that some memories are passed down through generations like genes. Medical research shows that déjà vu and temporal lobe epilepsy can induce this phenomenon to occur frequently. Perhaps it also includes time travel. Ryan Shorevers thought to himself. Ever since his soul transmigrated to this city of music a week ago, he had been troubled by this feeling of déjà vu. As a college student, he didn't know much about America, having only occasionally seen some abstract news videos from there, let alone anything about the Western music scene. This made him feel lost about the future, especially after being eliminated from a talent show. The original owner of this body had become a laughingstock in the first round of the Nashville Season 6 finale. Judge Billy Ray Cyrus's, Miley Cyrus's father, a well-known country music singer, comment still echoed in his ears. Perhaps you're a decent singer among lingerie models, but as a country music singer, you can't just have a handsome face and abs. Sorry, I can't pass you. The car radio's explanation of déjà vu continued. Ryan turned his head and saw, through the side window, a poster for the other Berlin girl next to the red, curved lettering of the AMC theater chain. Natalie Portman and Scarlett Johansson, dressed in classic attire and showing off their cleavage, along with the February 29 release date, flash by. A boring suspense show, the middle-aged woman driving said, turning the knob, and the radio's tone became lighter. Good afternoon, Nashville. The cold winter is finally over. Are you ready to shed your heavy coats and slip into lighter spring clothes? Nashville is sunny today, with an average temperature of 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Relax, Ryan. I already told her last night. You audition as usual, but it's just a formality. She's already agreed that you'll be the male lead in the music video, Trey Fanjoy, driving, reiterated. Got it, Ryan nodded, looking out the window at the row of music bars that had just opened their doors. Let's take a look at what's new for country artists this month. Kenny Chesney was crushed in the foot by a hydraulic lift on stage during his tour in Columbia, South Carolina yesterday. It took him 30 seconds to free himself, and he continued performing while limping. X-rays later showed several broken bones in his right foot, but he didn't cancel any shows due to the injury. Keith Urban, currently on his Carnival of Love, Pain, and Madness World Tour with Carrie Underwood, has officially announced that the lead single from his fifth studio album will be titled Sweet Thing. It remains to be seen whether this song will become his 10th Billboard country music chart-topping single, given the fierce competition from newcomers. Yes, I'm referring to Taylor Swift, who just won the CMA, Country Music Association, Best New Artist Award last year. As the youngest ever country music chart-topping artist, Country Radio released the final single from her self-titled album last week. Should've said no. She said she wrote the chorus in just 5 minutes, and many of the lyrics are based on actual words she used when facing her ex-boyfriends. Similar to her previous single, Picture to Burn, it's an accusation against an ex, but compared to the simple expression of anger of burning their photos, this song carries a hint of resentment towards a former lover, including Drew from the first single Tim McGraw, another crush from Teardrops on My Guitar, Jordan from Picture to Burn, and Sam from the new song Should've Said No. This newcomer's debut album already features 4 men. This ex-boyfriend marketing strategy has clearly been successful. The new song reached #1 on the Billboard Country Music Chart this week and successfully entered the Hot 100 overall chart. Her second #1 single, You'd Better Think Twice Before Dating Her, Ryan scoffed. Don't say that to her face, she might become a benefactor in your career, Trey Vanjoy cautioned. The person she contacted last night was Taylor. This teenage girl, Ryan retorted. A teenage girl with 2 #1 country music singles. I think you're the same age as her, right? Your original song on YouTube has over 5,000 views, hasn't it? Big star, Teresa Van Joy began to expose him. As a seasoned music video director, she showed no mercy when lecturing her friend's son. "Why do I have to be a country singer?" Ryan said, leaning back and resting his head on the cushion. According to the plot of the novel, transmigrators would use the advantages of their body's appearance and physique to find a wealthy and gentle older lady, who would comfort their weary spirits and, in return, support their impoverished lives. It would be even better if this person looked like Elizabeth Hurley or Sofia Vergara. That's right, don't bet everything too easily. Your return to school will be processed soon. Hendersonville High School is only a 10-minute walk from my house, Aunt Teresa interrupted Ryan's daydream. You're not going to have to start all over again from 9th grade, are you? Ryan's expression twisted as if he'd just had a nightmare. I don't have the money to pay for another 4 years of high school. You only have a little over a year left. Terry pulled the car over to the side of the road. As he got out, Ryan watched Terry, wearing a thin white tank top, put on a coat, and thought, Terry, that's a name that's really fitting. Ryan followed Aunt Terry into the yard. A plain gray-white wooden house came into view. He noticed a sign next to it that read Big Machine Records, with a logo of a monster truck with its wheels on fire. Terry knocked on the door, and after a moment it opened. A girl with curly blonde hair poked her head out. Welcome. Terry, congratulations on winning CMT Video of the Year. The girl gave Terry a standard Western-style polite smile, opened her arms, and hugged her. The CMT Music Awards are like the VMAs for country music, recognizing country music videos. My lens can only capture 1% of your beauty, darling. I should be saying thank you, Terry immediately replied with a smile. Ryan listened to the two women exchanging compliments and pleasantries. Terry had won the award precisely because of Taylor Swift's Her Song music video. Terry and Taylor's collaboration began with Taylor's first music video. And Terry had directed all 4 of Taylor's current music videos. It was through this relationship that Ryan was able to get in through Taylor's connections. Then it was Ryan's turn, and as he stepped forward, before he could even introduce himself, the hairs on the back of his neck suddenly stood on end, followed by a strong, tingling sensation on his scalp. An unprecedentedly strong sense of déjà vu washed over him. Chapter 2: Getting on the bus. The sense of déjà vu was exceptionally strong, the most intense it had been since he transmigrated. Maybe we've met somewhere before, Ryan blurted out instinctively. Both Therese and the tall, blonde girl opposite them were momentarily stunned, then smiled knowingly. You need to learn some more modern ways of flirting, Benjamin Button, the protagonist of The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Taylor said, stepping aside to let them in. Following Therese into the record company, the most prominent feature on the wall was Taylor Swift's debut solo album's RIAA Platinum certification and million-selling record, dated November 2007. A million sales? Even with the most conservative estimate, the person standing before him was definitely a millionaire. Ryan thought to himself. At the same time, Taylor Swift glanced at Ryan a few more times. To be honest, after agreeing to Therese's request last night, she hadn't had high expectations for the music video lead she was meeting today. There were some unexpected surprises. His face bore a resemblance to James Franco at his peak, and his shoulders looked quite muscular. Last night, Terry mentioned he'd left school last year to become an underwear model. Taylor's gaze swept over Ryan from head to toe. Likes working out? Taylor inquired. Ryan shook his head. Not entirely. I was a football player in school, then I was scouted by Next and worked as a print model for a while. He mentioned his modeling agency. So, the next step was to invite him to the so-called backroom for an audition? If he wasn't mistaken, there would be a sofa in the room, right? Ryan's mind raced. But the next second, Taylor shook his head and sighed. Although I really don't want to, I'm truly sorry, but I'm afraid you can't be the male lead. Things have changed. What? Terry exclaimed. Taylor felt quite embarrassed, but his attitude was firm. I didn't expect it to turn out this way either. I'm really sorry, Terry, this won't affect our relationship, will it? Taylor continued. How could that be? I know the competition for the lead role might be fierce, but, even a cameo role? You know his mother and I are very close, like you and Abigail, you understand, right? Terry pleaded. Oh, but, Taylor hesitated. Seeing that Taylor was about to refuse again, Ryan offered, "Never mind, thank you for taking the time." Aunt Terry not only asked the original owner to move to Nashville, but also helped him register for auditions and handle the paperwork for returning to high school. She was incredibly kind to the original owner. He didn't want to cause Terry any more trouble. When leaving the record company with Terry, Ryan couldn't help but feel a little down. If the original owner's previous elimination could be attributed to luck, after getting to know talented peers like Taylor, he realized that some gaps cannot be bridged by hard work. Other country singers might not write a #1 country single in their entire careers, while some can write one in just a few minutes, even if it's just to finish an art class assignment. Adhering to the principle of "since I'm here, I might as well make the best of it," Ryan decided to focus his energy on his studies from now on, aiming to get into a good university within the next 2 years. He told Terry about this idea. "It's so good that you think this way," Terry said with emotion. She knew that this boy's life had been full of hardships. His birth mother had a new family and children. After hearing the news that he had dropped out of school, she couldn't bear to see him fall into such a state of depravity, so she had the idea of taking him in. Now that he had seen the light, it couldn't be better. "Shall we celebrate tonight? Celebrate our failure to get accepted?" Ryan chuckled. He didn't go back with Terry, but instead planned to wander around the area known as Music Row by himself. At first glance, it was no different from any other neighborhood, but upon closer inspection, one would find that the boxes that pedestrians were dragging were actually various kinds of musical instruments, and various recording studios and record companies were everywhere on both sides of the road. Just as Ryan was marveling at the developed record industry here, he saw a huge Toyota Sequoia full-size SUV drive out of the parking lot next to him, making a harsh and unpleasant metallic screeching sound as it turned. A tall, blonde figure emerged from the driver's seat and walked around to the other side of the vehicle. The door and metal grille frame had come into contact, leaving several large scratches on the black paint. Ryan couldn't help but smile, especially after recognizing the driver. The next second, the female driver looked up and, seeing Ryan smiling across the street, immediately became angry. Seeing her waving for help, Ryan initially didn't want to go, but considering her working relationship with Therese, she finally moved towards her. "My mom usually drives this car, but today the three of them went to Vanderbilt University to watch an NCAA game and won't be back until tonight. I'm actually not very good at driving manual transmissions," Taylor explained from the passenger seat. "It has nothing to do with manual transmissions, it's just that you weren't paying attention," Ryan ruthlessly exposed her excuse. "Anyway, I was affected. My driving skills aren't bad, at least not with automatics," Taylor muttered under her breath. After Ryan helped her drive the car out, Taylor offered him a ride, though Ryan actually drove. The modeling world must be chaotic, right? Taylor wondered, recalling his past career. Of course, everyone's all very proper on the surface, but behind the scenes, Ryan hesitated. "Give me some juicy inside information," Taylor's eyes lit up. "For example, models don't usually make money from runway shows. Most maintain long-term connections with wealthy people. In fact, that's the main business for most agencies. Once you walk the runway at the 4 major fashion weeks, your value skyrockets." "And what about you?" Taylor asked with a smile. "That's the difference. I wanted to be a country singer, so I came to Nashville," Ryan said, seemingly trying to conceal his past. "But you have no advantage in that area. I've heard your songs, they have absolutely no musicality." Taylor shook her head, effectively condemning Ryan's career. "Your strengths lie elsewhere," Taylor added, resting her left elbow on the armrest. "That's right, so you know some famous female producers, right?" "I'd do anything for a hit single," Ryan said with utmost seriousness, though he was obviously speaking to those around him. Taylor, of course, caught the implication in his words and chuckled. "Actually, there's only one reason you can't be in the music video. Scott, the owner of Big Machine Records, cut the entire production plan. I only found out this morning. So I can only apologize to you. So, you're very satisfied with me." Ryan caught a key point. Taylor stammered, then glanced at Ryan and smiled somewhat embarrassedly. She couldn't deny Ryan's words. A muscular, handsome young man like Ryan was indeed her type. "Have you thought about how to make it up to me?" Ryan floored the accelerator, and the full-size Sequoia SUV drove towards the outskirts of Nashville. "Make it up to me? Wait, hey, it was Scott who cut a budget. He's the one you're looking for," Taylor protested. But you're the one who promised me. I only promised Therese. Where are you taking me? Taylor then realized that the car was speeding in the opposite direction from her home. Take me home. I'm not kidding. Taylor, who had been leaning back, now straightened up and looked around through the car window, her tone slightly nervous. Chapter 3, An Eye for an Eye. Ryan drove the car forward at a steady speed. The surrounding area became increasingly desolate, with only abandoned wooden houses, waist-high weeds, haphazardly discarded old furniture, and countless pieces of trash. Bathed in the setting sun, it looked like a classic scene from an American horror movie. Where am I? Taylor asked, still looking around nervously. Ryan turned and glanced at Taylor in the passenger seat. She was wearing her white spring coat backwards, her body hunched over, looking at him warily. At that moment, Taylor's mind flashed through some horrific news stories, men luring women they had just met to remote places. Taylor's heart raced. Just as the thought of calling the police crossed her mind, Ryan turned the car around, and a busy repair shop came into view. It's a bit out of the way, but at least the repairs are quick and easy. I had my car modified here before, Ryan said, getting out of the car and chatting with the repair shop workers. Couldn't you have told me sooner? Taylor, sitting in the car, felt a wave of fear, then chuckled. Then she took out a pair of Chanel sunglasses from her handbag and put them on, followed by a baseball cap, disguising herself before getting out of the car. Compared to the woman wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, the repair shop workers seemed more interested in the car. Ryan wasn't wrong, not only was there no queue, but the workers were also highly skilled. The bodywork, painting, and polishing were done in less than half an hour, restoring everything to its original condition, showing no trace of the previous damage. Considering your mother is driving this car, she might be angry if she sees it, Ryan said as he got back into the car. Is this how you pursue girls? Taylor asked out of the blue. I don't think it's necessary, Ryan said casually. He was only doing this for Terry's sake, including helping her drive the car out earlier. Putting aside personal preferences, he and Terry were, after all, business partners. In his memory, the original owner, relying on her face and figure, had never actively pursued any girls. On the contrary, from her school days, it was always the girls who pursued her. Then they might think the car's cooling system isn't very good, Taylor asked with a smile. Many times I have taken it in for repairs, and the mechanics have impatiently told me the air conditioner wasn't broken at all, Ryan said. Once the misunderstanding was cleared up, the atmosphere in the car began to lighten. Have you ever matched with girls in the car? Taylor asked, narrowing her eyes. Ryan knew he had, Taylor knew Ryan had, and Ryan knew Taylor knew he had, but Ryan still shook his head. TCH, I don't believe it, Taylor said unsurprisingly. This time, just as they were about to turn around and go back the way they came, Ryan suddenly turned the steering wheel in the opposite direction, causing the car to veer away from home. I never said I didn't want to go home, Taylor said, fiddling with her blonde hair and giving Ryan a deliberately alluring look. At dusk, the setting sun painted half the sky crimson, the fiery clouds magnificent and brilliant. The SUV parked under a tree in a deserted area slowly started, the front windows rolling down simultaneously. Taylor, who had just put on her shirt, leaned close to the window and took a few deep breaths, her face flushed a vibrant red. Then, pulling up her slim-fit jeans, she said without hesitation, "Seeing how hard you've worked, I can give you a chance. After the new EP is released this summer, the first single from the new album will have a music video, and I'll choose Terry to direct it, and you'll be the male lead." She had personally chosen the male leads for the previous music videos. A music video always needs a male lead, so whoever she chose didn't really matter to Taylor. Next, she started tidying her hair, making it look less messy, then her collar, then stretched the hem, and then raised her chin, repeatedly checking her neck for any marks in the rearview mirror. After checking, she started putting on her shoes, and finally wrapped the scarf she had been wearing earlier around her neck, making it seem like nothing had happened. Ryan hadn't expected this country girl to be so unrestrained in private. Although he knew that a relationship with someone like this was doomed to fail, he could still tolerate a little relaxation now and then. Don't let any bad woman get away, right? Does Terry have your phone number? Ryan tentatively asked, implying that he wanted to maintain long-term contact with Taylor. Taylor immediately became alert, Ryan's words flashing through her mind. She didn't know his past, who knew what kind of person he was? And he was a model, after all. It was best not to get too involved in this industry. After a few seconds of thought, Taylor made her decision. She said, "Listen, I don't want you to misunderstand. You're a gentleman, and you're great in every way. I'm really, really satisfied. But I'm really, really busy right now. I have to record a new album, and I'm afraid I won't have time to date. Maybe we can develop our relationship further in the future, but at least for now, let's not contact each other, forget everything that just happened, and don't mention it to anyone, is that right?" Ryan smiled as he drove. Taylor turned to him, "You're smart and enthusiastic, and that's why I didn't intend to deceive you. What I said just now was what I truly felt. My parents always taught me to protect myself when I'm out in the world. I admit I acted impulsively just now, but that's because I trust you. If you think I have a problem, then we can terminate our cooperation, anytime." First, she said some nice things, then attributed her behavior to impulsiveness, and finally subtly introduced a threat. Ryan's smile grew increasingly bitter, but he was well aware of the vast difference in their status. If he forced things, he would not only lose the chance to be the male lead in the music video, but it might even affect Terry. So, rationally speaking, he could only go along with her wishes. Writing a song for an ex-boyfriend was a business transaction, it wouldn't affect him anyway, just a friendly fling. What more could he ask for? There are still 3 whole months until summer. Maybe I'll already be kicked out by Terry before the music video even starts filming, Ryan suddenly said. That's your problem, you're right. Well, to make a living, I'll have to turn what happened this afternoon into a song and play it in Nashville bars. Don't worry, I definitely won't mention you, that meets your confidentiality requirements. However, I'm a rather crude person, and my language might be a bit explicit, like those booty music tracks. You shouldn't mind, right? Ryan smiled. Turning someone else's private life into a song and playing it everywhere, wasn't that exactly what Taylor excelled at? He was giving her a taste of her own medicine. Taylor whirled around, staring intently at Ryan. Actually, you can think of it on the bright side. My writing skills are so terrible, no matter how much I write, I can never become famous like you by selling other people's privacy. Doesn't that make you feel better? Ryan continued to rub salt into the wound. Taylor's eyes were practically blaming Ryan to death. Ryan then said slowly, "And now, you have a chance to solve this once and for all, which is to buy this song. You're trying to blackmail me." Taylor laughed in anger. "It's called a copyright sale, it's a mutual agreement." Ryan stepped on the gas. Half an hour later, Ryan walked out of Taylor's mansion in the wealthy neighborhood. Taylor had finally agreed to his request, which made him particularly happy. Just as he turned the corner, he saw an ambulance with flashing lights parked not far away, where the paramedics were urgently performing CPR. As Ryan gradually approached, the paramedics held an e-defibrillator and placed it on both sides of the injured person's chest. With the instantaneous current passing through, the injured person's chest jerked violently. A familiar, intense sense of déjà vu washed over him again, almost identical to when he first met Taylor. But unlike before, this time it caused Ryan's consciousness to momentarily freeze. 1, 2, 3 beeps. The defibrillator's sharp, instantaneous whirring seemed to transform into a rhythm, the tremors gradually intensifying, and Ryan's heart felt like it was pounding continuously. Then the whirring evolved into a continuous chord, the deep drum beats amplified infinitely, and combined with rich sound effects, produced a powerful sense of rhythm, like a volcanic eruption bursting forth with immense energy. A melody lasting several minutes, composed of multiple tracks, appeared in Ryan's mind. Then Ryan realized that this song wasn't a traditional pop song. It had no vocals at all, only a short 3, 2, 1 go section in the first chorus, but it possessed a structure similar to pop music, with an intro, verse, chorus, and interlude. Ryan looked at the neon-lit music bar sign not far away, listened to the acoustic guitar sound coming from inside, and shook his head. Then he looked at the nightclub on the other side. The powerful low-frequency bass sound in his mind was quite in line with this kind of place. At the same time, the name of the song began to emerge in Ryan's mind, Tremor. Chapter 4 Sample. Beyond the music itself, the visuals conveyed other information to Ryan, including the song title Tremor, the single cover, 2 credited artists, and a music video composed of visuals. The single cover bears the name Spin-In Records, clearly the record company. The music video is a montage of 2 parts. One part is rather mediocre, featuring a female model in a black bodysuit. These shots don't convey much information, simply showcasing the model. The other part is a series of live footage. Apart from close-ups of the DJs, each shot shows thousands of audience members cheering and jumping for joy, their faces beaming with enthusiastic smiles, men and women swaying to the rhythm like at a massive carnival. In an overhead shot, a massive stage, resembling a fantasy castle, is surrounded by a sea of people, at least conservatively estimated at over 100,000. There's more than one stage, over a dozen different stages appear, and 3 DJs are shown, a duo and a solo DJ, consistent with the credits. This was clearly footage of a dance music composer's tour. Could DJs become pop superstars in the near future? Surprised, Ryan analyzed the situation. He thought even Taylor Swift, the CMA Newcomer of the Year, wouldn't have such terrifying box office appeal right now. Today you laugh at my lack of creative talent, tomorrow you'll be astonished. With a slam of the door, Ryan returned to Aunt Terry's house. On the table by the door were keys, a vase, and other odds and ends, as well as a photo of Terry with a little girl. Terry looked younger in the photo, and the little girl was a spitting image of her, probably 12 or 13 years old. This was Terry's daughter. If she hadn't died in an accident, she would be about Ryan's age. Since her daughter's passing, Terry had lived alone until Ryan moved in recently. Now, he could hear clanging and banging coming from the kitchen, along with Terry's cursing. She was clearly struggling with the semi-finished meat patties and frozen vegetables she'd bought from the supermarket. She could coordinate a music video crew of dozens to film in a single day, yet she always found herself in a chaotic mess in the kitchen. Ryan, as always, donned an apron and hurried into the kitchen. "Ryan, your cooking is getting better and better." Terry, having scraped the last bit of sauce clean, raised her wine glass and downed it in one gulp. "All the paperwork is done, I can start school next Monday." After saying this, Terry asked about Ryan's whereabouts that afternoon. Ryan kept his deal with Taylor, not revealing his true whereabouts, and then quietly tidied up, washed the dishes, and cleaned. During his stay at Terry's house, it was less that Terry was taking care of him, and more that he was taking care of Terry. After finishing all this, Ryan went to Terry's study, turned on the computer, and was greeted by a Vista desktop filled with various files, including the music video script, storyboard drafts, half-finished project files, and behind-the-scenes footage. Ryan ignored all that, opened his browser, and entered the 2 song authors into a search engine. However, neither the duo Dimitri Vegas and Like Mike nor Martin Garrix yielded any results online. The original owner of this body had self-taught music theory and could compose country songs, but had no knowledge of electronic music. Fortunately, there were some videos on YouTube that could help Ryan quickly get started. After spending about 2 hours learning the basics, Ryan followed the video software's instructions to download and install it, and tried to open a DAW, audio workstation, software called Ableton Live, but before he could even enter the program, a huge paid purchase link popped up. From the basic intro version costing tens of dollars a month, to the standard version costing hundreds of dollars a month, and then to the most expensive suite version, the various functional limitations and technical jargon piled up, making it difficult for Ryan to understand in a short time. Left with no other option, Ryan took out Teresa's bank card from the drawer and paid for the most expensive suite version. But Ryan quickly regretted his decision. The complete software had far more features than he'd imagined. The dazzling array of buttons and function keys overwhelmed him, forcing him to learn step by step from the tutorials, starting with the most basic functions like creating files, adding tracks, and changing instruments. Time ticked by, and Ryan, his brow furrowed and focused on his tasks, didn't hear the approaching footsteps. "So late, why aren't you asleep?" Terry yawned and pushed open the door. Although there was only a split-second reaction time, it was enough for Ryan to save, close the software, and switch to the pre-opened preparatory learning website. Strange, how could you be so proficient? Ryan wondered. Seeing Ryan intently studying for his preparatory course, Terry glanced at the clock hanging above her, realizing it was past midnight, and a strange smile appeared on her face. "Don't overdo it. Even though you're young, you should still watch your figure," Terry smiled. "What are you talking about? You're crazy." Ryan gave a forced smile as he watched Terry, dressed in a onesie nightgown, turn and leave. Watching her voluptuous figure disappear, he couldn't help but compare her to Taylor during the day. After Terry left, Ryan tried to recreate the electronic music in his mind on the computer, but the software required a learning curve, and some timbres, such as the climax, were impossible for him to reproduce. He spent the entire night working on it, producing only a demo less than half a minute long. Listening to it, Ryan felt the reproduction was only half accurate. To achieve a good result in a short time, he needed professional guidance, but Ryan didn't even know where to find such a professional. Then he thought of his appointment with Taylor the next day, and an idea immediately surfaced. The next day, outside Blackbird's studio, Taylor, as promised, handed Ryan a plastic bag containing a wad of green banknotes and a USB drive. "Consider this your reward for your hard work yesterday. You're worth the price anyway," Taylor said, flashing a seemingly sweet smile, identical to her on-camera demeanor, but in reality, it was sarcastic. "The other USB drive contains a demo called Dog Day Afternoon. Consider it an extra bonus." "You're welcome." The song title could be elegantly translated as Hot Afternoon, or more crudely, Damn Afternoon. Ryan's eyebrows twitched. He never expected that she would actually write a song after just a casual remark. He didn't know whether to call her a gifted songwriter or someone with a magical thought process. "I also prepared a bonus for you." Ryan opened his palm, revealing another USB drive containing the demo he made last night. "You didn't actually write it, did you?" Taylor frowned. "It's another song. I want to let your producer hear it." Ryan made a new request. Besides Terry, this was the only industry person he could think of at the moment. "Introduce a producer? Don't joke around." Taylor immediately shook her head, assuming Ryan hadn't given up on her song and wanted to contact the producer through her. She decisively refused the request. "Just let him hear it, it's that simple. It's nothing to you, but it might change someone's life," Ryan said earnestly. To get rid of Ryan's entanglement, Taylor had no choice but to pick up the USB drive and verbally promise to give it to her producer. "I have to come in with you," Ryan said, sounding worried. This annoyed Taylor. "I must reiterate the relationship between you and me." She stopped mid-sentence, noticing Ryan's bloodshot eyes, clearly indicating he hadn't slept all night. She then realized that Ryan had probably been working on a project all night. This reminded Taylor of herself. Although she was somewhat promiscuous, she was extremely serious about music and had often worked through the night on her own projects. Thinking of this, Taylor's heart softened. "Fine." Taylor looked around, then whispered to Ryan, "Come in with me, and leave when you're done." "I'll say it again, this is the last time," Ryan interrupted. Chapter 5. Entering the detached building with Taylor, Ryan was immediately greeted by a wall of record covers. At first glance, he spotted numerous well-known artists: John Mayer, Dolly Parton, Baker, Rush, Sheryl Crow, Keith Urban, King Leon, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, and Black Sheldon, and this was only a small portion of the entire wall. Blackbird has 9 recording studios, each with completely different functions and features, Taylor said, seemingly in a good mood, acting like a tour guide. Ryan did indeed have the illusion of being on a sightseeing tour. Passing Studio C, he saw the walls covered with long, densely packed wooden strips. Taylor explained that there were a total of 130,000 long wooden strips in the room, each of a different length. "I heard it's based on an acoustic diffusion algorithm, basically to pursue a better immersive mixing and playback environment," Taylor said, only vaguely understanding the concept. The largest recording studio, A, housed the Neve 8078 console originally custom-made for Motown Los Angeles, while Studio B contained a series of collector's quality microphones. "We're here. The person you're looking for is here," Taylor said, pushing open the heavy door to recording Studio D. Ryan, following him in, immediately saw the enormous 96-channel API legacy mixing console, the largest in North America. He couldn't name many of the other pieces of equipment. Besides Taylor, there were only 3 staff members in the recording studio at the moment. Taylor then walked over, exchanged a few words with one of the bald, red-haired men, and then returned. "You'll probably have to wait a while, I need to re-record a section," Taylor said, pointing behind Ryan. "The private lounge is over there, maybe I can sit in the back," Ryan said, uninterested in the lounge but curious to see how the recording would proceed. Taylor refused, saying, "I've already made an exception and brought you in. Due to the need for secrecy surrounding the new song, you can't listen in." Ryan then entered the private dressing room. The walls were covered in velvet, the floors were dark walnut, and the lights were professionally adjusted to create a relaxing and comfortable atmosphere. A girl sat on a vintage brown leather sofa, head down, playing on her phone. Hearing Ryan enter, she looked up. They introduced themselves. The girl was shorter than Taylor, with long, curly hair darker copper color than Taylor's. Her name was Abigail, and she was Taylor's friend. You just met Taylor yesterday, and you're here with her recording today? Wow, your relationship is progressing pretty fast. Abigail's expression suggested she had discovered something significant. I wanted to give a demo of a song to her producer, Ryan explained, explaining his presence. The two began chatting casually, and Ryan discovered that Abigail not only knew melodies, but she had also appeared in Taylor's previous music video, and even her name appeared in the song Taylor was recording that day. Taylor said it was a memorable day, so I had to come. Abigail shrugged. She then recounted how they met. After Taylor transferred from Pennsylvania to Nashville High School, she and Abigail became deskmates, and they quickly became inseparable friends. This friendship has lasted to this day, and Taylor uses it as inspiration for her songs. That's just how she is. She puts everything, big or small, into her songs. That's her creative method, Abigail said. Ryan now deeply agreed with her. Then she proactively asked Ryan, "So, what's your inspiration?" "What? The songs you make?" It's ambulances." The other person clearly didn't quite understand, and just then, the door to the lounge opened. Taylor practically skipped over to Abigail, her face beaming with excitement and youthful energy, a far cry from the Abigail she had been the day before. But when she noticed Ryan, her expression instantly darkened, and she glared at him fiercely, clearly holding a grudge. "You should listen to this brand new version," Taylor said to Abigail. This time, Ryan was also given the opportunity to listen in. Ryan and the two of them walked out of the dressing room. The recording studio still contained the same three staff members: producer Nathan Chapman, the recording engineer, and a recording assistant adjusting equipment. At Taylor's signal, the bespectacled recording assistant began playing a snippet of the song. "You take a deep breath and walk into the school. It's the first day of school. You greet friends you haven't seen in a while, trying not to block anyone's way. When you're 15, someone says they love you, and you believe it's true. When you're 15, you feel like there's nothing to question." Sitting next to red-haired Abigail, you quickly become good friends, laughing together at those girls who think they were so cool. That first kiss at 15 made you swoon, but in the years that followed, there were things better than dating a football boy. "But I didn't know that when I was 15. Looking back, I once vowed that one day I would marry him, but I discovered I had bigger dreams." Abigail gave her all to that boy who changed his mind, and we all cried. After the series of clips finished playing, Abigail, as the character in the song, seemed somewhat moved, embracing Taylor deeply. Producer Nathan Chapman encouraged her, "This song is rich and sincere in its emotions, at least capturing the mindset of a teenage girl, but the melody is somewhat lacking, and some parts may need revision." "What's the name of this song?" Abigail couldn't help but ask. 15, Taylor replied. Chronologically, Taylor was a little over 15 when she wrote this song, but she was perceptive enough and had received professional guidance. After moving to Nashville, Taylor would have a 2-hour writing meeting with songwriter Liz Ross every Tuesday afternoon. 7 songs on Taylor's debut album were co-written by the two. Even Ryan had to admit that, putting aside her fickle personality, the lyrics of this song could be said to have touched the hearts of teenage girls. But the problem is, this time, instead of revealing her ex-boyfriend, she's revealing her best friend's story. Is this really a good idea? Thinking of this, he subconsciously shook his head, which Taylor noticed. "You think this song is bad, but not as good as the one you wrote." Taylor's tone was unfriendly. "How could that be? After listening to your song, I finally understand why I was eliminated. Compared to 15, my previous Fire and Rain was so empty and monotonous. And I truly felt your care for your friend, even writing about her first experience in the song, making it memorable for fans worldwide. That friendship is truly amazing." Ryan smiled. Taylor, however, was thick-skinned enough to casually say, "Thank you for your concern, but Abigail has already agreed, right, darling?" Seeing Taylor's expectant gaze, Abigail wanted to say something, but ultimately just nodded awkwardly. "She's just too embarrassed to refuse, can't you tell?" Ryan said. "Do you know her? What gives you the right to make that decision for her?" Taylor immediately retorted. The two started bickering. Abigail looked at the young man speaking up for her, feeling a momentary pang of emotion, and then spoke up. The lyrics are fine. I can accept it." Since the person involved had said so, Ryan had nothing more to say and simply took out a USB drive. "By the way, there might be another song here that's just as good as 15. Taylor chuckled, seizing every opportunity to mock Ryan. "So you're the football player from that song," the assistant photographer teased, noticing Ryan's physique, and casually took the USB drive. As the demo began playing, the first thing that came out wasn't a catchy melody, but rather a series of low-frequency sound waves. This led the recording assistant to initially think that the sound equipment was malfunctioning, but in reality, Ryan had left a piece of an instrument component on the track due to unfamiliarity with its operation. It wasn't until 10 seconds later that the song began its intro. By this time, the producer, the recording engineer, and Taylor were all busy packing up their things. The recording for the day was over. The music continued, followed by an interlude, a brief, gradual build-up, until the most important climax of the song. At this point, producer Nathan finally reacted, but only told the recording assistant to turn the volume down. The remaining recording engineer and Taylor didn't even look up until the short demo finished playing. "Where's the vocals? All I hear is overly heavy drum beats. It can't be my ears, right? Did you forget to record it? You're one of the top 12 contestants in Nashville Star," Taylor said smugly. This wasn't a compliment. There were only 12 contestants in Nashville Star. "I think it's pretty good, at least it's catchy, makes you want to headbang." Abigail smiled at Ryan and even encouraged him. "It's amazing to achieve this level on your first attempt." "What? It's so noisy," Taylor muttered. "Although it's still unfinished, I can already hear the main track. It's clearly electronic music, and it sounds fantastic." "I agree with Abigail. It's amazing to achieve this level on your first attempt. You could totally try becoming a professional DJ," producer Nathan Chapman smiled. This wasn't flattery, and Nathan didn't need to flatter Ryan, it was his honest opinion. Taylor's eyebrows furrowed involuntarily. Hearing someone praise Ryan was more painful than hearing someone criticize him. And it just so happens to be his own producer. He certainly didn't praise his song like that earlier. "It's no good either, it can't compare to Taylor's songs. I just had a sudden inspiration last night," Ryan said with a sheepish grin, trying to praise himself in a roundabout way. Others might not know the truth, but Taylor knew Ryan wasn't lying, and he felt a little embarrassed. For the first time, his pride faltered, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. Chapter 6 Semi-Finished Products. Ryan then asked Nathan Chapman about music, but the producer could only shake his head. "You've got the wrong person. I don't know anything about this genre. Young American guys only like R&B and hip-hop. Europeans, on the other hand, are quite fond of it," Nathan said. "I know who you should talk to," a voice came from behind. Ryan turned around, and Taylor and Abigail also looked towards the source of the voice. It was the recording assistant who had been in the studio the whole time. He wore thick glasses, was short and overweight, resembling a large penguin, and introduced himself as Joel. He seemed somewhat reserved under their gazes. "You could try contacting established DJs like Deborah, Deadmau5, or Steve Aoki, or go to Los Angeles or Miami yourself. In short, your target isn't Nashville." "You seem to know a lot about this," Ryan tried. Joel explained, "I occasionally discuss electronic music production with people online. There's a discussion group on IRC, Internet Relay Chat, with lots of electronic music enthusiasts. Anyway, I think your demo is really great, amazing enough, with prominent bass, simple chords, and a fantastic big room track." Seeing Ryan's doubt, Joel continued, "Big room is an electronic music style that emphasizes extremely strong rhythms, perfect for clubbing." Ryan felt much more at ease. Receiving affirmation from a professional enthusiast proved the song had the potential to become popular, and now the most important thing was to produce the complete track. Joel offered a similar suggestion, "But you'd better not take this demo to anyone. If someone gets involved, you won't just lose your main authorship, you might even lose your attribution. So, my final advice is to at least create a complete version and upload it to major paid music download platforms like iTunes, Amazon MP3, Rhapsody, and Zune Marketplace. Oh, and don't forget Beatport, club DJs all over the world download songs from there. After you've done all that, you'll need to promote the demo online, starting with social media, and copyright registration. You need to register with the U.S. Copyright Office as soon as possible," Ryan continued. This was a familiar process for him. The original owner had completed copyright registration by mail. Ryan looked at Joel again. "Have you used Ableton Live?" Joel nodded and invited Ryan to his home. Taylor finished packing his belongings and prepared to leave with Abigail. They parted ways at the entrance of Blackbird Studios. Everyone has their lucky moments. You just happened to bump into me, Taylor shrugged, regaining her confidence, and then turned to walk towards the parking lot. Her friend Abigail, however, didn't immediately follow Taylor. Instead, she turned to Ryan. "Thank you. Your name is Ryan, right?" she asked, blushing, naturally thanking Ryan for speaking up for her earlier. "Maybe we'll have a chance to meet again." She turned to leave, but kept turning back, then quickly followed Taylor. Would they really have a chance to meet again? Ryan shook his head. After yesterday's events, Taylor was eager to distance herself from him. "The room is a bit messy, watch your step." Joel grabbed the dog by the scruff of its neck and tossed it out, then slammed the door shut. Ryan almost tripped over the tangled cables on the floor as soon as he entered. The entire room resembled a cyberpunk showroom, with an old, broken Trinitron television, an electronic keyboard, a guitar, synthesizers, samplers, a disc player, all sorts of equipment piled together, surrounded by a computer. This was Joel's study. After agreeing to help Ryan complete the song's production, he gladly invited Ryan to his home. "I usually make music here, and I also have a hobby of collecting various musical instruments, although most of them are no longer useful," Joel explained as he turned on his computer. Then, Joel showed Ryan the Roland 808 drum machine he had just found at a second-hand store. "How is it? Not bad, right? This is a cornerstone of hip-hop music." Joel's hands were like those caressing an art piece. Joel's preferred DAW software was Steinberg Cubase, which he said had better expansion support, but Ryan couldn't see any difference between the two. Ryan then began to sketch the chord sounds in his mind and started a new round of production under Joel's patient guidance. Although Joel was very patient, he couldn't understand which synthesizer effect Ryan described as harsh and thick, rough and sharp, and with a certain degree of distortion and saturation. Maybe this synthesizer effect isn't even available on the market, Joel shook his head. Or maybe someone will create a more powerful effects plugin, so you can customize any sound you want. Clearly, the current level of music software development couldn't meet all of Ryan's needs. Ryan had to settle for the sound effects plugin Joel recommended. Although it didn't have the same impact as the version in his mind, it was enough to make Joel shout excitedly. "Awesome! Man!" Joel raised his arm, nodding his head to the rhythm, then turned the speakers up to maximum. He had never heard electronic music like this before. It felt like it came from the future, a whole era ahead of its time. "Do you want to give me a heart attack?" "Turn the sound off," Joel's mother shouted from outside the room. Joel reluctantly complied, then began to recount his experiences. "I wasn't this fat when I was at University of Florida. Back then, I was a DJ. After graduation, I stayed in Florida, working during the day and making music with my roommate Lawrence at night, hoping to one day make a living from music. I stayed for 7 years, only to fail countless times. Later, my roommate went to Los Angeles to continue pursuing his musical dreams, while I returned to Nashville." Judging by his age, Joel was already over 30, and his tone revealed a deep sense of disappointment unique to middle-aged people. How many people are like Taylor? Her father ran a consulting firm on Wall Street, her mother was always there for her, and she had great creative talent, a good voice, and a good appearance. If someone like that were in an inspirational movie, the audience would just think the screenwriter was an illogical idiot. But sometimes God just has a special fondness for certain people. Joel then mentioned Taylor, his tone becoming even more somber. Ryan had previously heard Tracy mention that Taylor's father had moved his entire company to Nashville to support his daughter's pursuit of her music dream. Her mother provided constant support. 2 years ago, when Taylor released her new album, it was her mother who drove her in a trunk full of physical CDs on a radio tour, personally delivering the albums door-to-door to radio stations across the country, which gave the country singer her first wave of exposure. "Want to know why I helped you, kid? I see a younger version of myself in you. I was thinking, if someone had provided guidance back then, I could have avoided so many pitfalls," Joel said, sharing his thoughts. The audience's reaction is the only true measure of a song's success. "I have a part-time job at a nightclub. Want to try DJing?" Chapter 7 Nightlife. Nashville has a vibrant nightlife, with several well-known bars, historic pubs, and lounges, but not nightclubs, Joel explained, driving his Toyota Corolla. The car was currently cruising along Nashville's Music Street, lined with brightly lit neon signs. There was no shortage of people singing and drinking, The entire street was lined with bars. Legend has it that Taylor was discovered by former DreamWorks executive Scott Pachedina at the Bluebird Cafe, known for its live performances. Perhaps it was precisely this strong live atmosphere that prevented nightclubs from becoming popular locally. Country music can be called adult ballads. It doesn't necessarily have to be played in the countryside, but electronic music is only listened to by young people, and currently it's only suitable for nightclubs, Joel explained. That's why I said you should go to Florida or Los Angeles. There are famous DJs, giant nightclubs that can hold thousands of people, and the most beautiful girls. But the true paradise of electronic music will always be Ibiza. I dream of buying a mansion there, Joel said. Everyone needs a dream. What if it comes true? A short while later, the car stopped at the entrance of a back alley. The environment here was far less vibrant than the brightly lit bar street, and the entrance was deserted. A few men were gathered together smoking nearby, dressed fashionably in new era baseball caps, Ape Shark hoodies, and sneakers from brands like Dunk, Air Jordan, and Old School. From a distance, Ryan's large eyes scanned the area, and the information immediately came to him. As a male model, the original owner of this body was skilled at dressing himself and very familiar with these trendy items. He had bought quite a few himself. However, the current Ryan wasn't interested in these things and paid no attention to dressing up, only pursuing comfort and ease. Vanderbilt University is nearby. A lot of young people gather here every weekend, Joel said. At this moment, a line had already formed outside the nightclub. It wasn't that the nightclub was particularly popular, but rather that security personnel checked everyone's attire. Joel, practically an employee here, led Ryan past the guards, but Ryan was unexpectedly stopped. Big guy. He's my friend, he's performing with me tonight, Joel said, shoving Ryan inside until they were finally inside. Face control, you know that, right? The guards selectively let in those who are more attractive. If you're a beauty, you can cut in line, you don't even need a ticket. But seriously, your outfit doesn't quite meet the dress code. Joel stared at the huge Gap logo on Ryan's chest. The two went down a sloping staircase into the basement. There were huge graffiti on the walls of the corridor, and two couples were whispering in a corner. As they passed through a large doorway, the previously muffled sounds immediately became clear. Two mechanical male and female voices repeated, "Push me, touch me, until I'm satisfied." This song is called Satisfaction, the debut single by Italian DJ Benny Banathy. The vocals are synthesized using Apple's Plain Talk technology. It peaked at number 2 on the UK charts, the first electronic music track to break into the mainstream in the new century. It's one of the regular tracks I chose for this nightclub, Joel explained. The two finally entered the nightclub's lobby, which was much smaller than Ryan had expected. It was L-shaped, with only 5 tables and a bar. Further away was a dance floor enclosed by iron railings, and at the far end, only a DJ booth remained. It wasn't even 9 o'clock yet, and only 2 tables were occupied. The dance floor was deserted. Joel, how much did you get paid last month? My salary has been decreasing for 4 consecutive months, the black bartender behind the bar greeted Joel. That's because you're selling fewer and fewer drinks, said the manager in a suit, hurrying past. I'm a bartender, not a drink salesman. The black bartender looked at the table closest to the dance floor, where 7 or 8 young, beautiful women were gathered. They wore bodycon dresses, strappy high heels, and had slender, shapely figures, dressed in flamboyant styles. The attractiveness of a nightclub isn't measured by its decor, its drinks, or even whether the DJ is a big name. It's all about how beautiful the girls are, Joel whispered to Ryan. The prettier the women, the richer the men they attract, a simple but timeless economic logic. Managers, bartenders, security guards, these are indispensable in every nightclub. Then there are promoters. They aren't employees but have a partnership with the club. They bring girls in, reserve tables for people, and while some girls are just for show, others will accompany guests, sell drinks, and of course, take them out. Top promoters have connections with top billionaires, so their pool of beautiful women is naturally top-notch. After greeting the bartender and manager, Joel nodded to the mustachioed man among the women in the booth, casually introducing him as a promoter. As for the DJ, he's just a performer, not an essential component. Did you hear the manager's complaint earlier? Business is tough these days. 2 more nightclubs have opened up the area this year. It's 8:45 p.m. Central Time now. We have 15 minutes to prepare. Joel and Ryan had already reached the DJ booth. Ryan saw an electronic device on it, or rather, two. Two turntables, like record players, were arranged horizontally, with a bunch of buttons and levers between them, looking like the control panel of some kind of precision instrument. Pioneer DJRX, a mainstream DJ equipment manufacturer, Joel flicked the turntables twice. This is called a CDJ. It functions similarly to an early record player. These aren't turntables, but turntables, used to adjust the speed and align the rhythms of two songs. The mixer is in the middle of the turntables. It controls the player's output. For example, Song A only outputs high frequencies, and Song B only outputs low and mid frequencies, ultimately creating a seamless transition between the two songs. That's the basic job of a DJ, understand? Joel asked Ryan. Ryan shook his head. Joel tossed him a pair of monitoring headphones. You'll get it in a minute. For the next 3 hours, Joel created a non-stop musical space, from a touch of classes around the world, la 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 la, to Nightcrawler's Push the Feeling On, to disco classic The Rhythm of the Night. From Kernkraft 400, frequently used in stadiums by Zombie Nation, to the visually stunning Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger performed by D. Punk at Coachella last year, to Tisto's classical remix of Adagio for strings, and the electronic music classic of classics, L'Âme or Toujours. Joel was indeed an electronic music enthusiast. Tonight's playlist was entirely composed of classic electronic tracks. Ryan also noticed another peculiarity: all this electronic music, from the musicians to the producers, distributors, and audiences, was based in Europe, as if it existed in a parallel universe to the popular music market in the United States. That's right, the United States is a barren desert for electronic music. Ever since the disco disaster 30 years ago, Joel explained the awkward position of electronic music in the United States. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, Don't Stop the Music. In the 1970s, disco was incredibly popular in the U.S. Chicago saw the rise of house music, while Detroit witnessed the emergence of techno. White people loved it, and black people loved it even more, except for one group, rock and roll fans. They deliberately equated disco with black gay men and began boycotting it. In the late 1970s, the Chicago White Sox of MLB held a promotion. People could get a 98-cent ticket discount by handing in disco records. During intermission, Chicago radio talk show host Steve Dahl would detonate all the handed-in disco records in the stadium. The White Sox originally expected 20,000 people to attend the event, but in reality, 50,000 showed up before the game even started. Thousands more rushed in after the game began, and records rained down from the stands. When the explosion started, thousands more stormed onto the field, forcing the White Sox to cancel the game. After that, disco became taboo. You know, the social atmosphere was still relatively conservative back then. Magazines, TV stations, and newspapers wouldn't actively cover sensitive content, and radio stations refused to play disco. Overnight, disco disappeared from the United States, becoming a niche hobby for a small group of people. Those rock fans back then probably never imagined that the demise of disco wouldn't allow rock to continue dominating the mainstream. Instead, it gave hip-hop music an opportunity to develop. They deserved it. Joel was still indignant about the past. Fortunately, disco music began to develop in Europe, especially in Britain. The concepts of nightclubs and rave were popularized by the British. The House of Commons later passed the Public Order Act, which stipulated that playing a repetitive melody outdoors to more than 20 people is considered disturbing public order, and violators would be fined and imprisoned. Maybe we can wait until the day electronic music revives in the United States, Joel couldn't help but say excitedly. Ryan looked at the young girl not far away who was frantically shaking her head. Just now, Ryan had watched her swallow several small pills commonly known as Molly. It was past midnight, and the lights were getting dimmer. Ryan frowned, called over a nightclub security guard, and pointed to someone nearby using a fancy packaged popcorn canister. The guard immediately stopped them. Tennessee is a red state, and they're relatively strict about this. At least you can't do this in public. But it's a different story in a private room. It's almost like burying your head in the sand. Joel placed his empty glass on the table. The last hour of the show is the main event. He had Ryan take out the USB drive, which contained the completed version of Termer. In the past 3 hours, Ryan had listened to a lot of popular electronic music, and he could clearly feel the difference between Tremor and those songs. Tremor had a simpler, even rudimentary, structure, a more prominent bass drum beat, and the current version still sounded worse than the one Ryan remembered. This made Ryan worry about whether the audience in the room would accept it. He and Joel went back to the DJ booth. As the intro started playing, Ryan saw several men and women on the dance floor instinctively looking towards the DJ booth. During the interlude, the timbres increased, and the crowd gradually adjusted from their initial confusion. As the climax approached, the riser effect kicked in, and the buildup of emotion was palpable. 3, 2, 1. Go. In an instant, the lead vocals, combined with the unison of all the parts, created the most powerful sound, the accumulated energy gushing forth like a bursting floodgate. The massive reverb, combined with the maximum volume, bombarded the audience's eardrums, accompanied by a simple, catchy melody. It was truly breathtaking. Joel next to Ryan started screaming. Just when Ryan thought everyone else on the dance floor would react similarly, he found everyone frozen in place, completely still. Then, in the next second, everyone snapped out of their daze. At that moment, everyone in the nightclub felt like they were standing on the pinnacle of life, as if they owned the whole world. Then came the post-release euphoria. The second interlude shed all the heavy drum beats, returning to the most primal melody, but foreshadowing a new storm to come. After 2 climaxes, the music entered the coda, and Joel began transitioning to another electronic track. A few seconds later, the middle-aged man who had been sitting in the booth stood up abruptly. A cigarette dangling from his mouth, a bottle of liquor in his hand, he swayed and pulled out 2 shiny green banknotes, throwing them at the crowd. The man demanded that the song be played again. Seeing this, the manager quickly walked over, picked up the fallen banknotes, put them in his pocket, and then stood up, gesturing for Joel to do the same. For the next hour, Tremor was played over 10 times. Ryan carefully observed the reactions of the crowd. Regardless of gender or age, everyone seemed to be under some kind of frenzied spell, their expressions becoming frenzied, even ignoring the reactions of the opposite sex around them. Ryan speculated that this was the result of drugs combined with the pulsating electronic music. Get the atmosphere going, jump around, kid, don't just stand there like a block of wood, Joel, standing nearby, couldn't help but remind him. Joel had already completely let loose, raising his arms, shouting, and shaking his head, his forehead and neck covered in fine beads of sweat. Ryan, however, seemed a little shy, standing there stiffly. He felt he must not have been a frequent clubber in his past life. At 2 a.m., the nightclub began to close, and men and women who had found new partners left in groups. Joel and Ryan sat on a sofa, with the nightclub manager in a suit on one side and the promoter who controlled the pool of beautiful women on the other. Joel, where did you find this music? Compared to tonight's, your so-called original song is utter garbage, the manager's eyes gleamed. Look at the state of those customers just now, they were all like madmen. The bartender said that sales in the last hour were 3 times higher than usual. Joel shook his head, not taking credit, and pointed to Ryan beside him. That song was this kid's inspiration. Only then did the manager and promoter properly examine Ryan sitting opposite them. Ryan was now accompanied by 2 girls, both belonging to the Atmosphere team. They had noticed him when he was still on the DJ stage. I thought he was your cousin or something, just coming over tonight to broaden his horizons, the manager said, then called Ryan over, took 2 bills from his jacket pocket, and handed them to him. This is your extra pay for tonight, the manager said. Ryan looked at the 2 bright green bills in his hand, marveling at how smoothly he had earned his first pot of gold through music, and pulled one out to give to Joel beside him. Take it, I have a fixed payment here, Joel said, not taking it. Immediately afterwards, the promoter took out a portable camera and took a group photo of the group. Young man, what's the name of this song? The promoter, who had a tattoo under his eye, asked, then pointed to the MySpace page on the laptop screen in front of him. It turned out that he had just recorded the scene and uploaded the video to social media, and several people had already left comments under the video, asking for the song's name. Seeing this, Ryan couldn't help but recall what Joel had once said about promoting music online. As times progress and technology develops, seizing the opportunities presented by social networks might just lead to rapid exposure. Just as he was thinking this, the Atmosphere team member in the fitted long dress who had been sitting next to him leaned closer. Chapter 9 Return to School. Can I call you later, "Honey? I'm really tired today." Ryan put his arm around the woman's waist and whispered in her ear. "You have my contact information." The dark-haired woman in the orange bodysuit pinched Ryan's chest and blew him a kiss before leaving. Ryan gave her a final pat on the back, coaxing and cajoling her as he saw her off. Joel, sitting in the car, looked bewildered. Once Ryan was in the passenger seat, he quickly said, "I thought you weren't coming home with me tonight." Ryan shook his head. "Who knew things would turn out this way?" "That was the right thing to do," Joel nodded. "I hadn't been working part-time at this nightclub for long, and things were similar to what you just experienced." "Guess what? His was bigger than yours," Ryan laughed. Joel shrugged. Ryan's words were probably pretty much true. Then Ryan mentioned his next move, saying he wasn't in a rush to submit to a record company, but would first build up some online attention. "If I had a choice, I'd let the record company contact me first, not the other way around," Ryan said. Joel strongly supported this and exposed the record company's tricks. After signing a singer, the record company would promise an advance payment to cover the singer's album production and promotion costs. It seemed like an investment in the singer, but it was actually another form of loan. After the album generated profits, this advance payment would be deducted first, and only then would the singer receive their share. What if the producers and recording studios are all owned by the record companies? The album production costs are still entirely up to the record companies. If the albums don't sell well and the profits can't cover the advance payment, your career is essentially over, unless you can find a way to repay that money. Even if the albums sell well, sales costs are a huge expense. Returns, distribution, album printing, these additional costs are all determined by the record companies. Then there are payment terms, taxes, and 90% of singers earn less than $5,000 a year. Ever since Napster, a peer-to-peer music sharing software that shut down in July 2001, appeared, the record industry has been on a downward spiral. Industry professionals have lost faith in the future, there's widespread anxiety, and chaos has erupted within the industry. The four major record companies occupy 80% of the market share, and every record company is trying to squeeze out the last bit of profit. Everyone wants to use their meager power to exchange for extra compensation. It's even worse than the era of Hollywood studios, it's like a doomsday carnival. You'd better be careful, some people love delicate little guys like you, Joel warned. Quietly returning to Teresa's house, Ryan went to his study again. First, he logged onto the Copyright Bureau's website to complete the copyright registration, paying the $50 registration fee with Teresa's credit card. Then, he opened YouTube and deleted all the self-recorded videos of himself singing and playing instruments from his channel, Ryan Rivers' official channel. Next, he pondered what to name his channel. After considering several names, Ryan thought of Dr. Dre and adopted the stage name Dr. Ray, based on his own name, and changed the channel name accordingly. Finally, Ryan reopened the Ableton Live software, attempting to edit the original song. However, as Joel had mentioned, there were currently no suitable sound effect plugins, and no matter how he adjusted it, he couldn't achieve the desired effect. Should he learn how to make plugins himself? Ryan began uploading music as videos to YouTube. Of course, he didn't know how to create those cool visual effects. The uploaded videos only showed a completely black background. Next, Ryan registered accounts on major social networks under the stage name Dr. Ray, including Twitter and MySpace. MySpace, being the most popular social media platform among young people, was his primary focus, while the other platforms were mirror copies of MySpace. Bang! The door was pushed open again, and Therese stormed in, hands on her hips, looking furious. "You'd better give me a reasonable explanation. I can still smell your perfume. Where have you been gallivanting off to?" Therese was quite unhappy. "It's a long story. Would you like to hear it?" Ryan made a move to press play. Terry immediately shook her head. "I don't care what you did tonight, you have to report to Hendersonville High School first thing tomorrow morning. Your application has been accepted. Didn't I tell you to come first thing? It's already 10 o'clock, you told me this at 3:30 in the morning, why didn't you wake me up tonight, eh?" "I set an alarm. Do you have an alarm clock in your room?" "It's your alarm clock. You weren't planning on bringing me here, were you?" "That's not important." Ryan and Terry tiptoed down the corridor, both feeling guilty for being late, afraid of disturbing others in class, so they peeked through the classroom glass. The teacher, seeing them, still invited Ryan in, while Terry, not wanting to stay a second longer, turned and left for her film production company. Ryan had no choice but to awkwardly introduce himself, only to see a familiar female face in the second-to-last row. The woman was resting her chin on her hands in a flower-like gesture, and looked quite surprised to see Ryan on the podium. "Pick a seat, Rivers," the teacher said. Ryan didn't think much of it and sat down next to Abigail. Instantly, all the other girls in the classroom looked at Ryan. Abigail was smug, while the boys in the class looked miserable. As an underwear model who had posed for Christian Audigier, Adidas, International Jock, and Hugo Boss, Ryan's looks were several levels above those of the students at these suburban public high schools. No wonder he attracted the attention of the other girls. Before they knew it, class was over. "Want some?" Abigail offered Ryan a red stick-shaped Twizzlers candy, the equivalent of spicy snacks in the U.S. Ryan shook his head. "Where's the locker? I'll take you there." Abigail immediately stood up, pretending to lead the way. Ryan could clearly sense that Abigail was being a little too enthusiastic, but he didn't know how to refuse. On the way, he asked Taylor, "Is she a student at this school too?" "She's already left," Abigail explained. "Dropped out?" "Well, one always has to make a choice between career and studies." Thinking about this made Ryan feel much more balanced. "She graduated a year and a half early, with a GPA of 4.0, Abigail continued. "Impressive," Ryan whistled. Looking at it this way, even if she put down her guitar, with her grades and family background, getting into a prestigious university wouldn't be difficult. "Let's not talk about her anymore. Which club are you planning to join?" "I recommend the Hendersonville swimming team. You can use your height and wingspan advantage, and you can even show off your muscles," Abigail laughed, trying to give her team a boost. Little did she know that Ryan had already been reserved. "I was on the Pineville High School football team. Before I left, the team made it to the Louisiana 4A finals," Ryan explained. He was able to return to school thanks to his football skills. Not long ago, the football coach almost hugged him around the waist in the principal's office, insisting that Ryan stay. Although rejected, Abigail's eyes shone even brighter. 4A finals? "I didn't expect you to be so good. Hendersonville desperately needs a football expert like you." "What position do you play?" "Tight end," Abigail nodded, her gaze towards Ryan now filled with even more admiration. In American schools, football players automatically increase the popularity of all the girls by 10 points, even Taylor at the time was no exception. At the same time, a Toyota Sequoia pulled into the parking lot outside the school, and Taylor and her mother got out. "This time, we should finally be able to get our graduation papers, right?" Taylor couldn't help but ask. Then, Taylor thought of Abigail and took out her phone to call her best friend. "What's the schedule this afternoon?" "Football practice? Don't all the guys on the team have girlfriends?" "Why is he here too?" Taylor suddenly raised her voice, then quickly lowered it when she noticed her mother's gaze. "He really came to Hendersonville High School." Chapter 10 Close Range Edge. When Ryan arrived at the field, the previously chatting and laughing crowd all turned to look at him, their faces filled with scrutiny and curiosity. Ryan's gaze swept over them one by one. American football is a 3-in-1 sport. Tactics and teamwork, reaction and speed, strength and height weight are all crucial. His teammates in front of him were of various builds, short and agile running backs, lean and slender wide receivers, strong and solid forwards, and skilled passers playing quarterbacks. As for Ryan's tight end position, it was the most unique. Standing on the edge of the forward line, he was responsible for both defense and offense, and the physical requirements were the most stringent, demanding both speed and the ability to withstand the opponent's forwards' attacks. A good tight end could put immense pressure on the opponent, while a poor one was practically useless, making it a position with a high ceiling but a low floor. Because the tight end was so difficult to use, most high school coaches didn't use it at all, instead replacing it with an offensive guard. So, when Ryan mentioned playing tight end, many people shook their heads. The team's current tactics didn't even include a tight end position. "What a pity, such a pity," the quarterback shook his head. Ryan didn't see the coach and didn't say much. He followed the others to change on the grass. When he took off his shirt, his lingerie model-level muscular physique instantly ignited the cheerleaders gathering nearby, with some screaming. "I'm drooling, is it the top or the bottom?" "Both top and bottom, of course." Not far away, in the stands, Abigail, hearing the cheerleaders' undisguised lewd remarks, was furious. She crossed her arms. "It's those bitches again." Seeing someone already bringing drinks, Taylor, sitting next to Abigail, frowned. Just now, she finally received her graduation papers. Her mother had already gone home, and she was planning to stay and celebrate with Abigail, but Abigail dragged her to the field. Taylor's younger brother was also on the football team, but as a junior, he was only a substitute. Inside the stadium, Ryan politely declined the drinks offered by the cheerleaders, deciding it was best to keep a low profile in this new environment. Just then, the football coach arrived, and at his request, Ryan introduced himself. The coach then mentioned their next opponent. If we can't beat Gallatin High School, we'll be out of contention for the state championship. The state championship? That must be a 6A level competition, right? Ryan felt a chill. Judging from Abigail's reaction, he'd thought Hendersonville wasn't very strong, but it turned out to be one of the strongest in Tennessee, 2 levels above his previous high school. As he pondered this, practice began. Besides the initial skills drills, the main event was the intra-team scrimmage. As the only tight end in the entire high school, Ryan, the newcomer, finally got his chance to play. "Go for it, boy," Ryan heard the enthusiastic cheers of the female cheerleaders nearby, which made the other male football players scoff. Ryan had attracted almost all the girls' attention, so they naturally didn't give him a friendly look and were preparing to pay special attention to this newcomer. "This isn't good, Ryan will suffer," Abigail in the stands said with great concern. She saw that Ryan was matched up against several key players on the defensive line, tall and strong, making even the 6'1" Ryan look petite next to them. "It's just a practice match, why are you in such a hurry?" Taylor couldn't help but sneer. Unlike the infatuated cheerleaders in the stands, she had seen plenty of handsome guys, and after getting to know Ryan, she didn't think he was anything special. The practice match officially started on the field, and Ryan collided heavily with a defensive end, feeling his internal organs tremble for a moment. On the front line, the offense and defense of the defensive and offensive teams were exactly opposite. The defensive line's frontliners were all experienced penetrators who knew how to use their physical advantages. Furthermore, these players, competing in 6A level matches, were far stronger than the ones Ryan remembered. In a single exchange, Ryan was overpowered head-on, helplessly watching as the defensive end pinned down the flanking running back. After 4 consecutive attacks, Ryan's strong side became a sieve, repeatedly breached, prompting some teammates to voice their doubts. Ryan felt somewhat embarrassed, and in the following attacks, he exerted all his strength to block. Though he was still inevitably breached, he managed to slow down the opponents somewhat. So, Taylor muttered from the stands, not believing Ryan's arrival would bring any change to his alma mater's team. The coaching staff on the sidelines, however, were pointing and discussing Ryan intensely in the distance, their assessment of him completely different from Taylor's. He can still hold off the defense with 2 underclassmen as backups. This transfer student is terrifying. He's facing Tennessee's strongest offensive line, the defensive and offensive coaches commented separately. Only they knew that this rookie was facing an extremely unequal matchup from the very beginning. "Don't rush, this is just his role on the front line," the head coach, who had previously tried so hard to keep Ryan, said slowly, implying that Ryan's value hadn't been fully realized. In the next offensive possession, Ryan immediately rushed towards the defensive line, exactly as before, but this time, the difference was that at the moment of contact, Ryan chose to sidestep, actually slipping between the 2 defenders, looking up to observe, and then jumping, easily catching the football, sprinting 20 yards before being intercepted. In the next offensive possession, Ryan used a fake to create an opening again, advancing another 5 yards. With only 15 yards left to score a touchdown, Ryan charged forward again after the inbounds pass. Seeing he attracted the attention of 2 players, he braked sharply to set a screen, allowing the running back behind him to score a touchdown. As the inbounds line gets closer to the end zone, the tight end's offensive advantage will become increasingly significant. The head coach revealed the truth. This tight end might just become the Raiders' team name biggest trump card this year. Ryan's performance was undeniable, sending the female cheerleaders into a frenzy. While other players said, "We've never defended a tight end before, we were careless," their previous underestimation of Ryan had vanished. Ryan had earned everyone's approval with his ability. 2 women in the stands couldn't help but scream. "Did you see his charge just now? He's so fast." Abigail stood up and applauded. Taylor pursed his lips, having to admit he had underestimated Ryan. "This bastard isn't all looks." Taylor watched Ryan remove his helmet on the field, his swag glistening like diamonds in the sunlight. A subtle tremor ran through her, and the erotic scene in the car a few days earlier flashed through her mind. Those who made it onto the football team were the most physically gifted, and Taylor, like most young American women, had a bit of a football filter. This was confirmed years later with another tight end. However, Taylor then recalled his menacing face as he threatened her, and her vague feelings for Ryan vanished instantly. "Stop pretending, you've got your eye on him, haven't you?" Abigail looked down at her friend, scrutinizing her. "Didn't I tell you I'm not interested in him?" Taylor shook her head repeatedly. "Really? Then why did you take him to the recording studio and play your songs for him? Nobody else got that treatment." Abigail smiled, pointing out Taylor's preferential treatment of Ryan. Taylor, embarrassed, hastily explained, his words disjointed, "That's because he's Teresa's nephew. I promised him I'd film a music video, but it's cancelled now. Out of Teresa's sake, I have to give him some compensation." "You care about Teresa's opinion? You wouldn't have done that for anyone else," Abigail added. "I really don't have any feelings for him," Taylor said, a dismissive smirk on his face. Really?" Abigail nodded, seemingly believing him. Taylor breathed a sigh of relief. For some reason, he'd felt pressured earlier. But then Abigail's tone shifted. "So, do you consider me a good friend?" "Of course. You're the first friend I made in Nashville. What if I need your help? As long as it's within my power, I'll..." "Wait, you wouldn't." Taylor suddenly realized something. "That's right," Abigail nodded, "he doesn't have a girlfriend, right?" Chapter 11 Diffusion Plan. "Wait, I can't do this," Taylor exclaimed, somewhat panicked. "Of course you can, and only you can do it," Abigail said immediately, seemingly having already thought it through. "All those bitches at school are watching, and I don't know him well. Only you can help us break the ice. He doesn't want to be a singer. You can find an excuse to invite him out, to perform together, to collaborate on songwriting, or even to discuss his appearance in a future music video. In short, as long as you ask, he'll definitely come, and as your friend, it's reasonable for me to be there, right? After 1, 2, 3 times, the opportunity will come," Abigail explained her plan. "But, is this really okay?" Taylor felt completely bewildered and could only ask back. "What's wrong with it? You don't know him at all, do you? He's a model, you know, this industry is chaotic. Maybe he's a bad person? You don't know him at all." In her mind, Ryan was clearly not a reliable person. "You mean, he'll change his mind and dump me in a few days?" Abigail pondered. "Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking," Taylor nodded repeatedly. "Do you really think I'd be crazy enough to marry someone I've only met twice?" Abigail looked incredulous. "Like in 15, how long can a relationship last at this stage? I've thought it through. Since it's going to end in tragedy anyway, why not find someone more handsome?" Oh, Taylor was completely defeated by her friend's logic and was speechless. "Besides, with you here, he won't dare to go too far. Maybe he'll even be more well-behaved? Or maybe he's just a good man," Abigail tried to say. "I'm doing this to hurt you," Taylor thought for a moment and shook her head. "I know you're doing this for my own good, but I noticed him when I saw him in the lounge that day. When he appeared in the classroom today, I felt it was God's arrangement. I can try to get to know him first. If he really has a problem, I can just pretend none of this ever happened." Abigail looked at Taylor with pleading eyes. "You're the best." Before Taylor could answer, Abigail pouted, trying to get close to Taylor. Taylor pushed her away, her heart sinking, feeling the situation growing increasingly chaotic. Did the staff at the recording studio say they'd help him promote his music on social media? Why don't we take this opportunity to ask him out? He definitely won't refuse, Abigail quickly added. Did I agree last time? Taylor thought to herself. No way, honey. Anyone else is fine, but him, absolutely not. Taylor ultimately refused. Abigail quickly pulled back and sneered. I knew it. You said you weren't interested in him, but I think something might have already happened between you two. She feigned sudden realization. No. Nothing happened, Taylor vehemently denied. Just as the two girls were discussing this, Ryan was called over by the head coach. In recent years, many of our team's key players have received full scholarships to the University of Tennessee and Vanderbilt University for football. Both are members of the ASEAN Conference. As long as you get a GPA of 3 or higher, you can get that too, the coach said to Ryan, his purpose clear. The coach mentioned that the ASEAN Conference is one of the 5 major conferences in the NCAA, and playing there is practically a step into the NFL. The University of Tennessee has even produced a top quarterback like Peyton Manning. Although Vanderbilt University is consistently at the bottom of the ASEAN Conference, it is known as the Harvard of the South, and even though many universities have this reputation, it is still ranked in the top 30 nationally. According to the coach, if Ryan plays football steadily, a bright future awaits him. But Ryan wasn't excited. He was torn. He didn't consider himself a genius, and to remain competitive, intensive training was inevitable, which would inevitably conflict with his musical career. He could only choose one. After careful consideration, Ryan said, "I probably can't stay in the team for too long. I'm only suitable as a substitute." He initially thought the coach would be displeased, but to his surprise, the coach immediately nodded. "It's great that you think that way. I was worried you wouldn't accept a substitute position." Clearly, that was the coach's initial plan. Ryan suddenly understood. Because it was a close-end position, starting him would make him vulnerable to being targeted, while being a substitute would allow him to play a more crucial role in key moments. "My promise still stands. But the premise is that you can play a crucial role in key moments. The rest of the time, you don't even need to be on the field." The coach gave Ryan extremely lenient training requirements. Now he could report back to Terry. Others might not know, but Terry would definitely be very happy to hear this news. Afterwards, Ryan and his newly acquainted teammates carried their sports equipment back to the locker room. Suddenly, someone whistled, "The big star is here. Haven't seen you in a while. You've really gotten more and more beautiful. Do you want to have songs written about you too? Your first album is about 4 ex-boyfriends. The next album will definitely be double that, right?" someone commented. Then several players let out teasing laughter. Ryan looked up and saw Abigail and Taylor walking towards him hand in hand. The two had finally reached an agreement. From this angle, Abigail had a better figure, Ryan thought to himself. In the fast food restaurant, Ryan chatted with the two girls about football, school life, music, and social media accounts, including MySpace, YouTube, and Facebook. "I have over 3 million followers, with MySpace having the most," Taylor said, her brow slightly furrowed, clearly not wanting to talk much with Ryan. But to clear herself of any suspicion between them, she had to. "Do you usually use your social media accounts?" Ryan asked. "Of course, I reply to fan comments and upload photos of my life. These are all promotional methods, but they must be under the supervision of PR. Paula Erickson, the former head of A&R at RCA, is responsible for building my public relations image," Taylor explained. "What does she think about the fact that 4 ex-boyfriends appeared in your first album? Or does she condone this behavior?" Ryan suddenly asked. This was a very pointed question, and Taylor's brow furrowed deeply. First, not all 4 men on the album are my boyfriends. Second, they only collaborated with me after the album's release. Third, she feels we shouldn't discuss these things directly, as it puts me in a passive position, and maintaining the status quo generates extra buzz. She then rolled her eyes at Ryan. "That's my creative approach, and in the end, it's helped me sell more albums. So not only do I not need to change anything, I have to stick to it even more firmly." The implication was clear: it's none of your business to tell me what to do. This discussion ended, and the focus returned to social media promotion, which was what Ryan cared about most. With Abigail's mediation, they agreed that Abigail would first share Ryan's music as a friend, and then Taylor would share it again. This way, Taylor would maintain a natural distance from Ryan, Ryan would achieve his promotional goals, and both parties could accept it. However, during the discussion of the details, Ryan clearly felt that Abigail was being overly proactive. Considering Abigail's behavior earlier that day, Ryan vaguely guessed the truth. To his surprise, Taylor was actually willing to be his wingman. Was she so eager to become his sister? At the same time, Abigail mustered up her courage and invited Ryan. "By the way, spring break is in 2 weeks. How about we go surfing in Florida? There's also the UMF Music Festival in Miami, and you can chat with the DJs there." Chapter 12 Spring Break. Spring break, Ryan was taken aback. In the West, there's a holiday around Easter, which is spring break, usually at the end of March, roughly equivalent to the Qingming Festival holiday, but lasting about a week. That's right. As the last spring break of their high school years, the 12th graders are going to Panama City Beach as a group. "You should come along," Abigail invited. "Oh," Ryan pondered. Joel had mentioned before that Florida, as a popular tourist destination, has countless nightclubs and a thriving DJ industry, not to mention the Ultra Music Festival held in Miami during spring break. He definitely had to go. It was a group activity, and the cost per person wouldn't be too high. It seemed like a rare opportunity. Ryan glanced around and saw Abigail also trying to persuade Taylor to join. "I might not have time," Taylor shook her head. Ryan, standing nearby, echoed the decision. "Joel might have another nightclub performance planned. If he doesn't have any other commitments, I'll go." It wasn't exactly a lie. College and high school students across the country would be on holiday then, making it peak season for nightclubs. Hearing Ryan's refusal, Abigail visibly became dejected, while Taylor's expression remained unchanged. After the dinner, Taylor waved his hand, calling the waiter to pay the bill and adding an extra tip, making the waiter beam with delight. Taylor's mother had gone home early that afternoon. Abigail had originally intended to drive Taylor home in her own car, but Taylor offered to let Ryan drive him, saying it was on his way, clearly wanting to talk to Ryan. A short while later, a two-door Dodge Challenger pulled up in front of Taylor. "Pretty cool ride," Taylor remarked casually, opening the door and getting in. "I spent almost all the money I earned as a model last year on this car." Ryan started the car. Spending all his earnings on consumption had left him unable to withstand risks, forcing the original owner of the body, who couldn't find work, to leave New York and never return. It just so happened that Therese was visiting the original owner's mother at that time, and at her suggestion, the original owner came to Nashville to participate in the Nashville Star competition, trying to get in through Taylor's connections, which led to his current situation. As Ryan pressed the accelerator, the car sped through the night. On the way, Taylor brought up Abigail. Just as Ryan expected, Taylor said her friend had a crush on Ryan. "She wants me to create opportunities for you two to be alone," Taylor revealed without hesitation. "Sounds good," Ryan pretended to think. "You're not allowed to flirt with her, not allowed to be alone with her, and definitely not allowed to sleep with her, including during spring break," Taylor immediately said. "Jealous," Ryan laughed. Taylor slowly began, "I just don't want her to get hurt." When Ryan returned to Tremor's house, he didn't go to his room, but instead went to the study and turned on his computer. Unlike before, Ryan wasn't focused on quickly and efficiently copying the song in his mind. Instead, he seemed to be aimlessly using various functions of the DAW software, testing the effects of each plugin. Of course, this inevitably involved paying some bills with Tremor's bank card. Because he was wearing headphones and completely absorbed in his work, Ryan didn't notice a figure quietly pushing open the door and appearing behind him. When Tremor saw Ryan expertly using her bank card to pay the bills and then logging into her email to delete the payment notification email, Tremor's face immediately contorted with anger, then she was somewhat amused and exasperated. Finally, she silently turned and left, not wanting to disturb Ryan's concentration. At 3 in the morning, Ryan created a brand new Tremor remix and uploaded it to social media. The next morning, Ryan, at school, turned on his computer in the library and found that Taylor had posted a new social media message, as promised. Taylor summarized the previous day's experiences with a series of pictures, including returning to school, a close-up of his graduation certificate, watching the football team practice, and having dinner with his best friend in the evening. Ryan appeared in 3 of the photos. As a description of the photos, Taylor explained the day's itinerary, then casually mentioned his new EP release mid-year and his new album for the second half of the year, and then announced that he would be the opening act for a country band's concert at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville next week. Finally, he introduced and tagged Ryan, saying that Ryan's party music was great, and included a short link to listen to it at the very end. Although it was just 2 insignificant sentences in a long text, the benefits to Ryan were obvious. Within a dozen hours of Taylor sharing his music the previous night, the number of followers on MySpace jumped to 4 figures, and it was expected to reach tens of thousands in the next few days. Besides the influence of minor celebrities, the quality of the song was also one of the reasons Ryan quickly gained attention. Seeing many comments asking when Tremor would be available, Ryan decided to upload it to all the major paid download platforms that evening. Paid download platforms don't mind having too many songs on their platforms and don't have strict upload requirements. As long as you're an independent musician, you can complete the process. Just then, Abigail, who had come to the library with several girls, noticed Ryan sitting at his computer. After exchanging a few words with her friends, she parted ways with them amidst their snickers and then walked over to Ryan. "Good morning, what a coincidence. Looking for information so early," she said, patting Ryan on the back. Abigail chatted with Ryan, placing her backpack on the table and carefully placing the books inside on the shelf one by one. Finally, she took out several notebooks and handed them directly to Ryan. "I was just looking for you. These are my notes from the past few years of classes. I don't need them anymore, so here you go," Abigail said with a smile. Ryan was a year below Abigail, who was about to graduate. These notes were incredibly valuable to Ryan, and he accepted them without hesitation. He opened them and flipped through a few pages in front of Abigail, only to find that many of the notes were very messy and difficult to understand. "Do you have time this afternoon?" Ryan suddenly asked. "What?" Abigail didn't hear him clearly at first. Ryan showed her the notebook. As a transfer student, catching up with the curriculum would require more time, but Ryan didn't have much time in the evenings, so he had to find a shortcut. For the next 2 weeks, Ryan lived a very structured life: morning classes, 2 afternoons a week training with a team in rugby, 2 afternoons receiving tutoring from Abigail, and 2 afternoons working on mixing and production, including remixes of Tremor and current popular songs. While these versions might not be as catchy as the originals, they rapidly improved Ryan's software skills. In the evenings, Ryan and Joel would arrive at the nightclub on time, taking turns performing for 4 hours. Ryan's Tremor caused the nightclub's popularity to skyrocket, to the point where tables had to be booked in advance. The nightclub manager's face was constantly beaming with smiles, and Ryan's extra pay increased daily, from an initial $100 to $300. Meanwhile, Ryan's MySpace followers officially surpassed 10,000. Tremor, as an independent artist, was uploaded to several paid platforms, and thanks to Taylor's help in spreading the word, the highest single-day paid downloads reached nearly 1,000, even though it was still just a half-finished track. With Ryan taking his first step in his DJ career, spring break was drawing ever closer. Chapter 13 Special Tracks. As night fell, a long queue had formed outside a nightclub near Vanderbilt University. The guards at the entrance skillfully selected men and women with striking appearances and charisma, a rule common to any popular nightclub. Strict customer screening elevates the social standing of the establishment, creating a positive cycle. In this particular nightclub, this was facilitated by a popular electronic music track circulating online. "Should we go in now? Will we miss out if we wait any longer?" Abigail asked anxiously from inside the car. "As long as we get there, there will always be seats," replied Taylor, who was touching up her lipstick in the mirror on the sun visor. "So you're going to have to rely on your looks?" Abigail asked. Taylor shook her head, then, with a touch of vanity, placed her hand on her waist and swayed slightly in the car. "No, I'm relying on my figure." After a final check of their attire, the two got out of the car. Taylor and Abigail were now wearing matching evening gowns. Even high school students need at least one formal outfit for important occasions like prom. Taylor wore a pure white halter-neck jumpsuit, while Abigail wore a dark green strapless long dress. Neither dress had high slits, just reaching the knees, and both were sleeveless. Arm in arm, carrying handbags with metal chains in their other hands, they swayed slightly as they walked onto the sidewalk. Abigail, still unaccustomed to her high heels, needed Taylor's support. Even before the two meticulously dressed women reached the entrance, they attracted the attention of a group of men in line. Taylor, wearing sunglasses, held her head high, her gaze unwavering, like a model walking a runway. Beautiful women are always the club's VIPs. One side of the entrance, guarded by security, was reserved for the pretty girls. "Welcome," the tall guard said, immediately stepping aside to let Abigail in. When it was Taylor's turn, the guard pointed to the end of the line in the distance. "It's not safe for blind people to come here," the guard taunted, subtly mocking Taylor for wearing sunglasses so late at night. Besides this obvious problem, Taylor's unattractive, flat figure was the real reason she couldn't cut in line. Her friend's failed attempt to show off her figure made Abigail chuckle. Taylor, slightly annoyed, muttered, "You'll regret what you said." While rummaging through her handbag and pulling out her ID, the guard took it, glanced at it, and then, seeing Taylor pull down her sunglasses to reveal her eyes, quickly and respectfully made way for this big star. "Don't tell anyone, I'm here with a friend tonight." Taylor put her sunglasses back on and walked down the stairs with a chuckling Abigail. "Is it really okay to come without telling anyone?" Abigail thought of something. She hadn't forgotten her mission for tonight. Telling him would be a mistake. "This is a nightclub. Who knows if he's involved with those gold diggers?" Taylor cautioned. Tonight's nightclub infiltration had a somewhat test feel to it. Abigail had expressed similar concerns, and Taylor had immediately devised this plan. Abigail nodded, having made up her mind, and entered the nightclub lobby with Taylor. A waiter in a suit and vest approached them to ask if they had reserved a table. The two realized that the nightclub was quite popular, so they had no choice but to sit at the bar. 2 Bellinis, 1 neat and 1 on the rocks, and 2 olives. Taylor ordered 2 cocktails. Prosecco with peach puree and a touch of flavored liquor. Hopefully the drinks here are authentic. Taylor explained the ingredients to Abigail, trying it out as he spoke. After taking a sip, Taylor immediately pushed the drink aside and ordered a glass of iced water instead. Abigail looked at the DJ booth. It wasn't even 9 o'clock yet, and there was no one there. "Ladies, who are you waiting for? Why don't you come to my table? I happen to have a few empty seats." A moment later, someone came to Taylor's other side and struck up a conversation. The man had black curly hair, wore a floral shirt, and the top 2 buttons were undone, revealing a gold chain. "Thank you for the invitation," Taylor grinned, making a move to get up. The man was delighted and was about to lead the way when he noticed Taylor's hands groping around haphazardly, calling out, "Where's my guide stick?" "Abigail." The man's face paled, and after a few seconds, he made up an excuse and left. At that moment, DJs Joel and Ryan appeared in front of the dance floor, and even before they started performing, they drew cheers from the crowd. "Ray! Ray! Ray!" The audience chanted Ryan's code name in unison. In just half a month, Ryan had created a sensation among the students at Vanderbilt University. Taylor and Abigail, sitting at the bar, couldn't help but exchange a glance. Country music really doesn't suit him. Taylor was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected Ryan to win over so many people in just a few days. He's found his own path. Abigail was mostly happy for Ryan. The dance floor grew larger, and the first part of the performance was led by Joel, featuring a medley of classic club songs, just like before. Ryan, in this part, clapped his hands to the rhythm, swaying slightly with the beat. Although Ryan tried his best to immerse himself, his stiff movement still looked somewhat comical. After about 40 minutes of warm-up, Joel picked up the microphone. "What's up? Are you ready to party tonight? If you're with your best friends, make some noise. This next drop is gonna blow your mind. Are you ready? Let's take it up a notch." Next, it was Ryan's turn. The standard tremor rhythm appeared, green laser lights flashed incessantly, and 2 blonde dancers in 7-inch heels and lingerie walked gracefully to the DJ booth from either side. With Ryan's help, they stood on the DJ booth and began dancing the go-go, a provocative dance typically performed in nightclubs, clubs, and similar establishments. Abigail frowned slightly. Such a performance was rather excessive for a high school student, especially considering the dancers were only inches away from Ryan, some movements practically touching his face. Taylor's attention, however, was focused on Ryan and the electronic music called tremor. She was surprised, and also noticed his rapid progress, and, just like herself, he wasn't good at physical movement. The climax of tremor and the dancers' performance brought the atmosphere to fever pitch. About 15 minutes later, the go-go dancers left, and Ryan, unusually, picked up the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've prepared a special remix tonight, never played before. It's called Dog Day Afternoon, PFFT." Taylor spat out a mouthful of ice water, then coughed violently. Abigail quickly handed her a tissue. "This water is too cold." Taylor hurriedly changed the subject, breathing heavily. So angry she wanted to grab a bottle and smash it over Ryan's head. But doing so in this situation wasn't easy. Ryan had remixed the track, changing the 3 beats to 4, speeding it up, mixing it, and adding various sound effects, making it impossible to recognize whose voice it was. Taylor breathed a sigh of relief, but the offensive lyrics in the song still made her cheeks flush red. Where did Ryan find this song? The person who wrote the lyrics is a real bitch, Abigail cursed, increasingly annoyed. Taylor just chuckled, not daring to reply. The performance then returned to the first phase led by Joel, and tonight's nightclub performances repeated themselves in this manner. Abigail and Taylor continued to observe Ryan, finding him to be relatively clean-mannered. He didn't flirt with the 2 go-go dancers and maintained his distance from female customers who tried to flirt with him. "I knew he wasn't that kind of person." Abigail finally relaxed. "Shall we go find him?" Abigail suggested. Taylor also had the idea of confronting Ryan, so the 2 immediately grabbed their bags and headed towards Ryan's booth. On their way, they passed a table, behind which sat the man who had flirted with Taylor earlier. Seeing the tall girl in sunglasses easily dodge the waiter carrying a tray, he realized he had been tricked. Being tricked is one thing, but being tricked in front of your friends is a much bigger problem. A man loses face, and with the added influence of alcohol, he puts down his glass, gets up, and walks towards Taylor and his companion. Chapter 14 The Price. Taylor was pulling Abigail along the crowded dance floor when she suddenly felt her wrist being grabbed, causing her to stumble. Pretending not to see? Don't think I don't know the rules here, the man in the floral shirt scoffed, grabbing Taylor's wrist and dragging her towards his seat. The girls the promoter had brought that night were also wearing similar long gowns, leading to confusion about their identities. Taylor immediately screamed, but her slender frame meant she didn't have much strength. Abigail couldn't let her friend be dragged away, but her gown prevented her from moving freely. In desperation, she could only shout towards Ryan's location in the distance. Ryan! Come help us, Ryan! The nightclub was incredibly noisy, and the dim lighting made it difficult for Ryan to hear Abigail's cries. It was only later that the nightclub's security personnel noticed the commotion and rushed over. One of them happened to be right next to Ryan. Ryan turned around and realized the woman being grabbed looked familiar. Then he saw Abigail in the green dress next to her. Surprised, Ryan didn't hesitate and quickly went over. The security personnel seemed to know the man. Although they stopped him, they didn't help Taylor break free. Taylor had already taken off her sunglasses and was repeatedly identifying herself, but in the chaos, no one paid attention to what she was saying for a short time. Just as Taylor began to feel uneasy, a tall figure squeezed through the crowd and pried the hand gripping her arm off. As a football player, Ryan's physique and strength were ruthlessly superior to that of a middle-aged man weakened by alcohol and sex. Ryan then exerted force, bending the man's fingers backward. The middle-aged man winced in pain, his back arching. At the same time, the man's friends rushed over, and Ryan, the security guard, and the middle-aged man were locked in a standoff, the situation becoming increasingly chaotic. Taylor and Abigail, recognizing Ryan, immediately flitted around like fledglings, flanking him. In this unfamiliar setting, Ryan's robust physique provided them with a sense of security. Ryan, however, remained completely unfazed. Having been stationed at the nightclub for half a month, he was used to conflicts averaging one every 2 days. The nightclub manager and the guard who had been at the entrance arrived at this time. During their conversation, the middle-aged man's identity was revealed. He was the owner of a nearby Spanish restaurant, out with friends that evening, and had some connections with the nightclub owner. With a misunderstanding cleared up, the matter seemed to be coming to an end. But Taylor didn't want to end there. Did you see my face clearly? Taylor pointed at herself, displaying an unyielding and defiant attitude. Not only the nightclub manager, but even the middle-aged man apologized profusely to Taylor. Taylor was a celebrity, after all, and making a scene would benefit no one. In the end, Ryan stepped in and took Taylor and Abigail away. What brings you two here tonight? Ryan finally asked. We've already booked our tickets for spring break, heading to Panama City first, Abigail said, mentioning another matter. Abigail had invited Ryan many times during this period, and Ryan nodded, officially agreeing. On the other side, Taylor, though still somewhat angry, remembered Ryan's help earlier and said with a sullen face, "Thank you. I'll forgive you for playing that song without permission tonight," Taylor thought to himself. By the way, I left your jacket in my room last time. I'll bring it to you the day after tomorrow, Ryan suddenly said to Abigail. No problem, Abigail nodded naturally, completely unaware that Taylor's eyes widened in disbelief. Taylor suppressed her strong premonition and feigned concern. By the way, it's been half a month. How is it going between you two? Abigail simply gave Taylor a smile. That single smile only made Taylor more uneasy. Unable to find her way to approach Abigail, Taylor turned to Ryan. Ryan, take me home later, Taylor suddenly said mysteriously. Ryan and Abigail exchanged a glance, then gestured to the car next to them. Taylor had driven tonight, and it was an automatic. Taylor wanted to say something, but Ryan and Abigail had already turned and driven away. She kicked the tire in frustration, then burst into tears from the pain. Taylor's reaction was so strange. Abigail, sitting in the passenger seat of the Challenger, looked out the window. Ryan couldn't help but think to himself, didn't you want to distance yourself? I'm getting closer to your best friend, why are you so anxious? Maybe she feels that your presence makes it impossible for me to be with her all the time. Abigail sought an explanation. Abigail then recounted some of Taylor's past experiences. After initially signing with RCA, a subsidiary of Sony, the two sides didn't truly collaborate. Besides disagreements over release dates, Taylor also desired a creative environment free from interference. Former DreamWorks executive Scott was willing to grant Taylor this absolute freedom, thanks in no small part to the support of Taylor's father, another Scott. Taylor had the final say on everything from creative direction and lyrics to music video production, a stark contrast to most singers in their early careers. What's the price of this freedom? Ryan suddenly asked. Perhaps Taylor's experience would be relevant to him. I don't know, but Taylor once complained that most of her singing career was tied to a single record contract, which I think was over 10 years long, Abigail tentatively suggested. Ryan's heart sank. Even Taylor had to sign such a long-term contract, his treatment would likely be even worse. A moment later, the Challenger arrived outside Abigail's house. Before getting out of the car, Abigail waved goodbye to Ryan. See you at the airport the day after tomorrow, Abigail said. Back home, before he could even change into his slippers, Ryan saw Therese holding a bank statement. Ryan could delete emails, but he couldn't destroy the paper statement. Before Therese could even get angry, Ryan pulled a small wad of cash from his wallet and handed it to her. He explained everything to Therese, mentioning that this money was earned from being a resident DJ. This was only part of his total income. Paid downloads would bring in additional revenue, but that wasn't as much as live performances. And all the income combined was far less than Ryan had expected. In fact, the single hadn't made much of a splash. Are you sure you're not selling drugs at school? Therese clearly didn't believe him. Of course not. Ryan quickly shook his head and pulled Therese to the study, making her put on headphones. Therese asked many more questions before finally relaxing. You know, it's pretty cool. Therese nodded repeatedly and asked about Ryan's work location. After she left, Ryan realized she had left the stack of money on the table. It wasn't so much that she forgot, but rather that she hadn't intended to take it in the first place. Ryan didn't stand on ceremony. He put the money back in his wallet and prepared to continue making electronic music as usual. But not long after, Therese walked in again, holding her phone. Taylor Swift. Ryan understood her lip movements. Ryan picked up the phone and answered. Taylor immediately launched into a tirade of abuse. You broke your promise, you bastard. Who told you to touch Abigail's? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15: The Opportunity to Sing the National Anthem. The study was so quiet that Terry, standing in the room, could hear Taylor's voice. Although she couldn't make out what she was saying, she could sense Taylor's anger. Ryan exchanged a glance with Terry and switched the phone to his other ear. We're not really together anymore, are we? Ryan whispered. Terry's eyebrows twitched instantly. The impact of this was no less than Ryan earning money as a DJ. We are. I'm Abigail's best friend. I have a responsibility to protect her. You're not allowed to contact her anymore, Taylor persisted. The next second, it seemed her mother knocked on the door, and Taylor lowered her voice. Clearly, she didn't want her mother to know she was talking to a boy on the phone late at night. Ryan had to explain his situation with Abigail. When he heard that Abigail had only been tutoring him in his missed academic subjects, had only visited his house once, and that Ryan had taken her home that evening, Taylor breathed a sigh of relief, as if it were the best news she'd heard all month. What have you been up to for the past 2 weeks? Ryan asked. It's not easy to explain everything. Besides recording songs, I also have to prepare for various events and give interviews. Just so you know, I have 2 magazine covers in April. In May, I'll be invited to perform live at the ACM, Academy of Country Music Awards, one of the 2 major country music awards on par with the CMA, where I've been nominated for Album of the Year, Female Artist of the Year, and Best New Female Artist. In early June, I'll release a new EP, part of an agreement with a major distributor. Walmart will have exclusive rights. At the end of June, I'll be performing at the Verizon Amphitheater in San Antonio, and in July, I'll be at the Country Thunder Music Festival, and that doesn't even include some potential performance opportunities, like being a guest performer at the Jonathan Brothers concert, or even making a cameo appearance in Hannah Montana's movie. These are still unconfirmed. Also, The organizers have already booked me to sing the national anthem at Game 3 of the World Baseball Classic in Philadelphia in October. Maybe by then, the new album will be completely finished." Taylor rattled off a long list of confirmed schedules. Ryan gleaned 4 words from her words: thriving. Ryan, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. His social media following stagnated. His core social media platform, MySpace, similar to QQ Space, barely held 3,000 followers, even with Taylor's help in driving traffic. Paid downloads were few and far between. Only after Taylor's promotion did they increase significantly, reaching a little over 1,000, amounting to only a few $100s. Since then, downloads have plummeted, now less than 3 digits per day for paid downloads. The only good news was that his production skills had improved considerably. After 2 weeks of performing in nightclubs, he could easily splice songs together with a mixer. 2 weeks ago, Ryan thought he would gain some fame with Tremor, believing that simply placing the song where people passed by would naturally attract attention. Reality, however, left him deeply disappointed. Ryan had even tried various methods to actively create a sense of déjà vu, but all to no avail. Ryan confided everything to Taylor, by which time Teresa had already left the study. "Oh, that's perfectly normal. In fact, you've done a fantastic job." Taylor's slightly childlike voice came through the phone, encouraging Ryan. "Want to know how I first got noticed? It's actually quite simple. I was about 11 years old when I suddenly realized that if I didn't have a record deal, singing the national anthem was the best way to appear in front of a large crowd. I went to 76ers games, the US Open, even meetings at the local garden club. I was willing to perform in front of an audience. It was after my US Open performance that an audience member approached my mom and me. He was an agent, and with his help, I got in touch with the RCA. A year later, my family moved to Nashville. During that time, I participated in Maybelline's Chicks with Attitude compilation project and attended BMI songwriter showcases, just for any little bit of exposure, but none of that worked. RCA wouldn't even let me record my own songs. Then my dad and Scott, they both have the name Scott, reached a collaboration agreement, and I finally signed a long-term contract with Big Machine, 13 years, 6 albums. You can think of Big Machine as an independent record label. Finally, I had a chance to showcase myself. By then, 4 years had passed since I first sang the national anthem in front of an audience. A full 4 years. How long have you persisted? 4 weeks, Taylor comforted Ryan with her own experience. How old were you then? 15, when I signed with the Big Machine. In other words, Taylor had gone through 4 years and was still only 15. It really is true that you have to become famous early. Ryan thought to himself. So, any insights? My mouth is dry from talking. Taylor sounded like she was wrapped in a blanket. Ryan thought for a moment. Don't miss any opportunity to sing the national anthem. Exactly, Taylor chuckled. Like the Ultra Music Festival in Miami during spring break, Ryan said. He had done his research. The Ultra Music program was part of the Winter Music Conference, WMC, which had been held since 1985 and was now a well-known annual summit in the industry, attracting thousands of attendees, including artists, DJs, representatives from record company A&R departments responsible for discovering and signing new talent, producers, promoters, broadcast and media representatives, DJ equipment manufacturers, and audio equipment manufacturers. Here, even with just one song like Tremor, he might find a patron. Okay, hope you find something good in Florida, Taylor wished, then yawned. Ryan hung up the phone with Taylor, tried making music with DAW software for a while, then shut down his computer. Before going back to his room, he clutched Teresa's BlackBerry Curve 8310 phone, which she had bought last year, and went to Teresa's door. Ryan found the door ajar, and there was no sound from inside. Teresa was clearly asleep. To avoid disturbing her, Ryan slowly pushed open the door and saw that the bedside lamp was still on. Teresa was sprawled on the bed in a casual, sprawling position, wearing a black lace onesie nightgown. As Ryan placed his phone on the bedside table to charge, he couldn't help but turn his head and saw that the nightgown straps had slipped down, revealing her voluptuous figure and fair skin, truly dazzling. Ding-ding, the phone suddenly emitted a clear notification sound. Teresa abruptly opened her eyes, meeting Ryan's gaze, and immediately clutched her chest. I didn't see anything. Get out. At the same time, Taylor, who was about to fall asleep, was woken again by her phone ringing. She glanced at the caller ID and answered anyway. "Hello," Taylor said weakly. "Taylor, are you asleep?" Abigail asked. Help me decide what to wear for spring break. Florida should be pretty warm right now." "Whatever, Taylor just wanted to sleep." Then Abigail said thoughtfully, "I bought 2 super sexy swimsuits, but I think they were too revealing." "Oh well, I'll take them anyway." As a surprise for Ryan, Taylor suddenly opened his eyes, his sleepiness vanishing instantly. Chapter 16 Crimes. Late March, Panama City Beach. The warm sunshine, exceeding 25 degrees Celsius, felt incredibly comfortable. Wearing sunglasses and only beach shorts, Ryan lay half reclined on the sand, a gentle breeze caressing his skin. It was indescribably pleasant. Not to mention the countless swimsuits before and around him, a dazzling array that made him feel almost dizzy. Perhaps this was the most enjoyable moment since his transmigration. In reality, this was just Ryan's wishful thinking. When he, Abigail, and a dozen other classmates arrived at this so-called spring break paradise, the first thing they saw was a dense throng of spring break students. Thousands of people crammed into the small beach, a chaotic mix of arguments, laughter, and screams resembling a bustling market. There were swimsuits and bikinis, of course, but the figures weren't necessarily hot enough. The scene of a group of bikini-clad beauties from a popular 90s American sitcom was nowhere to be seen. The only saving grace was that the sun was indeed shining brightly, the sea shimmering, perfect weather for sunbathing. Who said this was a spring break hotspot? You'd have to ask MTV. After the spring break live show in the 80s, this became synonymous with spring break destinations. This is the only free public beach, and there are definitely too many people here this year. What to do? Go back to the hotel? Or wait for the evening show? Does Harpoon Harrier, a local bar, have any events tonight? No, tonight, but tomorrow is the annual Beach Bash Music Festival, held at the bar. I heard there will be some big-name guests, so what do we do tonight? The Winter Music Conference opens in a few days, and Ryan plans to spend 2 days in Florida with his classmates. Hearing his classmates' discussion, he looked at Abigail next to him and saw that she was wearing flip-flops and a large beach towel that completely covered her upper body. Ryan then looked at the other single female classmates next to him, who were dressed similarly. Obviously, these girls had carefully prepared for their first spring break since turning 18, and it would be too boring to go home disappointed. But the beach was so crowded that there wasn't even a place to lie down and sunbathe. Ryan looked further out at the yachts, several of which were cruising on the sea, and someone was leaping from the top deck, tumbling into the water. "Maybe we can rent a yacht," Ryan suddenly suggested. Renting it only for tonight, even with holiday premiums, should be manageable. Ryan assumed everyone would agree, but to his surprise, his classmates all looked hesitant, stammering for a while before finally admitting it was over budget. Hendersonville was just an ordinary public high school, and the students all lived nearby. High school students here couldn't possibly have a huge budget for spring break. "All right," Ryan nodded. In that case, he pulled a bulging wallet from his beach shorts pocket, indicating his willingness to be generous. Instantly, all of Ryan's classmates cheered. Several boys practically wanted to call Ryan their sugar daddy, showering him with kisses, their emotional appeal at its peak. Others started looking for boat rental companies along the shore to run errands for Ryan. In high school, these students had a relatively simple concept of money. Ryan managed to make $1 look like $10. After boarding the boat, several single female cheerleaders asked Ryan to apply sunscreen to each of them, which Ryan readily did. A while later, Ryan appeared at the stern and sat next to Abigail. Abigail was standing at the gunwale, using binoculars mounted on the deck to observe the shore. These binoculars were usually used to observe the distant ocean, but Abigail was using them to observe the shore. Noticing Ryan approaching, Abigail was startled. "We have to call the police right now," Abigail exclaimed in terror, then abandoned Ryan and hurried towards the cabin. Ryan, using the binoculars, stood at Abigail's previous angle, and the explosive scene came into view. A group of black college students, men and women, were standing on the beach not far from the shore, chatting and laughing. Everyone wore smiles, looking no different from the other spring break students. Just a step away from them, 3 black men knelt on the ground, surrounding a girl who remained unresponsive, completely at their mercy. They weren't applying sunscreen, they were committing a far more heinous act, the kind of thing Indians like to do. "Yes, right on the beach. Send officers over there." Abigail rushed back to the deck, now calling the police. If Ryan hadn't witnessed it with his own eyes, he would have found it hard to believe such a thing could happen. It was broad daylight, with at least dozens of people nearby, yet no one intervened. Everyone seemed oblivious, assuming the girl was asleep. Abigail shouted, trying to attract attention, but because they were too far from the shore, no one paid her any attention. Although the police arrived at the beach within 10 minutes, the beach was too crowded and there were no landmarks. By the time the two officers waded through the fine sand to reach the scene, only the woman remained, abandoned on the sand. Abigail, who had witnessed the entire incident, was filled with horror. Spring break had once been associated with warm sunshine, sweet love, and laughter, beautiful things, but reality had given her a harsh lesson. She had no interest in playing all afternoon, and her beach towel remained wrapped around her the entire time. Ryan, on the other hand, had recovered from his initial shock. He had used his binoculars to observe other areas of the beach and discovered that this group of people gathered in broad daylight was not isolated. As for the three criminals, Ryan had already memorized the face of one of them, a black man with dreadlocks. That evening, Ryan learned from conversations with others that crime rates surged in popular spring break destinations during this time, including disorderly conduct, illegal gun possession, and drug use. Local radio broadcasts also mentioned the city council passing a spring break ordinance, and the police department would increase enforcement during spring break. Only then did Abigail snap out of her daze, now even more determined not to leave Ryan's side. After the group returned to shore, she insisted Ryan take her home. Unable to resist her request, and considering Abigail's help with his studies over the past 2 weeks, Ryan agreed, exchanging glances with several male classmates before leaving, seemingly making some kind of agreement. The usual place, one of the lean guys whispered to Ryan. Back at their hotel apartment, Abigail closed the door. I'm starving. Shall we go to Captain Anderson's restaurant for paella later? We can have some drinks too, Abigail suggested. Unfortunately for Abigail, Ryan already had plans. Ashley, the cheerleaders, and the others are next door. You can go with them. I'm really tired today, Ryan said. Abigail frowned. Then go. Don't come back. A door slammed shut behind her. Damn it, Abigail screamed, then started tearing her beach towel off herself, pretending it was Ryan. She hadn't even had a chance to show Ryan her black and white bikini. A few minutes later, Ryan had met up with some male classmates. All the girls had returned to their apartments. Next up is the men's event, the wet t-shirt party. The tall, thin boy from before put his arm around Ryan's neck. His name was Paul, the starting cornerback on the school's football team. This position was usually filled by the fastest runner, and Paul perfectly fit the bill: a slim waist, long legs, a small head, and a long face. He looked like a Doberman. Ryan and his group walked along the sidewalk, passing a black Mercedes MPV at an intersection. Inside, a young man wearing a baseball cap was looking out the window. Zimmerman, besides the Beach Bash Music Festival tomorrow, will be heading to Daytona for a second performance the day after, then to Miami for the Ultra Music Festival. Have you checked all the rent helmets? The young man asked. The assistant nodded. Should we call 2 pretty local girls to your room tonight? The young man shook his head. No thanks, he wanted to play computer games later. Note, the beach scene described in the text is adapted from a real case that occurred during spring break in 2015. Chapter 17 Deadma 5. The following morning, Ryan and his group arrived at Harpoon Harry's Bar, a wooden structure perched on the beach. Elevated by wooden supports to prevent it from being submerged by the tides, the bar featured wooden railings, wooden stairs, and red swimming ring decorations on the walls, a scene almost identical to those in movies. Beach Bash Music Festival flags hung outside the railings, and of course, there was a dense crowd. Even at 10 a.m. the previous night, Ryan had joined a wet t-shirt party, similar to most social parties, using suggestive activities to liven up the atmosphere, fueled by alcohol, with the ultimate goal of quick matching. Ryan had indeed picked up a female college student from Florida last night. She had thick, wavy hair, a tall figure, and bright red lips, possessing the classic blonde beauty of Hollywood's golden age. However, her numerous tattoos completely dampened Ryan's enthusiasm, and he declined her invitation, returning to his hotel alone. At this moment, Ryan noticed that the banner listed the guest DJs performing that day. Aside from the unfamiliar names, one of them was familiar to Ryan: Deadma 5, pronounced like Deadmau5, a DJ with some fame in North America. He chose this stage name because he found a dead mouse in his computer while replacing his graphics card, and due to character restrictions in IRC, chatroom, channels, he had to use 5 to represent the rest of the characters. His distinctive feature was the Mickey Mouse-like mouse head he wore during each performance. It was unclear whether Disney's legal department had noticed. "We need to hurry in. The show is about to start. We need to pick a good spot," Paul said, putting his arm around Ryan's neck while looking around, clearly searching for pretty girls. Ryan glanced to the other side. Abigail was talking to several cheerleaders. Today, she was wearing a floral shirt and denim shorts that revealed her thighs. Noticing Ryan's gaze, Abigail deliberately looked away, probably still upset about Ryan's heartless abandonment the previous night. "It's not even noon yet," someone suddenly asked. "That's right. Do you know what a day club is? It's a party that starts when the sun is at its strongest, marked by a large indoor swimming pool." Paul sipped his coconut drink through a straw. Led by Paul, the group entered the bar. Seeing that the first floor lobby was too crowded, they went up to the second floor. They lined up against the railing, enjoying a panoramic view of the party, even though there were no seats. Ryan observed the scene with interest. This small music festival was more popular than he had imagined. The first floor was practically shoulder to shoulder, making it difficult to even turn around. Paul then called 2 people to buy drinks. The opening act had already begun. An unknown DJ was scratching records. Ryan thought the sounds were far less pleasant than Terminus's, even bordering on noise, but the audience seemed to enjoy it. Ryan looked around aimlessly, then his gaze suddenly fixed on a certain spot. Not far from Ryan, Abigail and several girls began to sway their heads to the rhythm. Her gaze kept falling on Ryan, noticing that he was suddenly staring intently at a corner on the lower level. Following Ryan's gaze, Abigail saw 3 black men mingling in the crowd, trying to pick up girls. They were the same 3 from the beach yesterday. Abigail was terrified and quickly moved closer to Ryan. "You saw it too, right? Call the police first," Ryan whispered in Abigail's ear. He had recognized their distinctive dreadlocks immediately. Just then, Paul returned, handing Ryan a large red plastic cup filled with a green liquid, topped with a layer of blue. Classic tequila, Gakujian, Mountain Dew, plus cantaloupe and green apple liquors, and the blue on top is blue curacao. We call it swamp. "Oh, Ryan, who upset you?" Paul introduced, only to see Ryan's serious expression the next second. Ryan explained what had happened on the beach yesterday. "These black guys deserve to be chemically castrated," Paul cursed. "What do we do now?" Abigail had already returned from calling the police. "The police will be here in a few minutes. Let's keep an eye on these 3. Ryan and Paul exchanged glances, then called another football player, a defensive tackle, a very muscular man named Hank. The 3 quietly went downstairs, each guarding one of the 3 exits, waiting for the police to arrive. Abigail remained on the second floor, observing the 3 men's positions while keeping in touch with Ryan on her phone. "The 3 men are not far from you. They haven't moved," Abigail's voice came through Ryan's earpiece. A few minutes later, Ryan heard the sharp sound of police sirens behind him. "Next, all I need to do is wait for the officers to get in position, surround the 3, and then slowly tighten the encirclement," Ryan thought to himself. The next second, the loud bass suddenly disappeared, followed by shouts, "Panama City Police Department, arresting suspects. Everyone, don't move, shit," Ryan cursed his teammates. The officers' shouts not only failed to control the situation but also made things more chaotic. Some people rushed away, and amidst the shoving, screams erupted. "They're trying to slip out a back door," Abigail said through his earpiece. Ryan didn't care about anything else and chose to flank from the outside, shouting for the officers, along with Paul and Hank, to follow him. Ryan was the first to circle around to the backyard, where there was a large swimming pool. He then saw 3 people quickly leaving among the crowd of people in swimsuits. Ryan and the officers started running. "Make way," Ryan shouted to the crowd in front of him. Before Ryan could even get close, the 3 noticed the chaos behind them and quickened their pace, then sprinted away. The 3 were moving quickly, and Ryan could barely keep up, while the police officer gradually fell behind. Seeing themselves in a dead end, the 3 frantically rushed into a room with a slightly ajar door. Ryan followed closely behind, and saw several other men and women inside, including 2 bikini-clad women and 3 men dressed in t-shirts and jeans, who didn't appear to be spring break students attending a music festival. There were also a bunch of electronic devices on the table. Cornered, the three didn't care about anything else and charged directly at Ryan. At the same time, Paul and Hank, who had fallen behind, arrived, and a 3-on-3 brawl ensued. The three black men were all physically strong, and Ryan's three men were no less so, all being football players. For a moment, no one had the upper hand. Ryan faced a man with dreadlocks. His strength was immense, and he knocked Ryan to the ground. In desperation, Ryan grabbed a spherical object, grabbed its edge, and hurled it at the man. After a few blows, the sphere, wrapped in red cloth and primarily made of plastic, shattered into several pieces. The fragments cut the dreadlock's face, and Ryan seized the opportunity to unleash a barrage of punches, each landing squarely on the dreadlock's face. The dreadlock's head lolled to the side, seemingly unconscious. Just as Ryan relaxed his guard, the dreadlock's eyes snapped open, and he used a UFC ground move to pin Ryan down, locking his legs around Ryan's neck. Ryan instantly felt a wave of suffocation, veins bulging in his temples, his face turning purple within seconds. At the critical moment, a figure suddenly appeared, delivering a stomp to the dreadlock's face, his heel pressing down repeatedly. The restraint loosened, and Ryan broke free, only then seeing that Abigail, disregarding the danger, had also pursued them. This time, Ryan wasn't careless. He grabbed some kind of weapon from the table and threw it, then leaped up and delivered a flying kick, knocking the dreadlock man to the ground. Hank, on the other side, also subdued his opponent, slapping him across the face with a flat, metal-like object, knocking him unconscious. Only Paul was at a disadvantage. He had a gash on his chest and could only hold on to his opponent tightly with his legs. But before Ryan and Hank could help, the man broke free and rushed out of the room. Fortunately, the police officers arrived, and the three of them worked together to subdue the last suspect, inevitably involving punches and kicks. The officer dressed as the sheriff, yelling "Damn bastard," kicked the black man twice in the stomach. A crowd of onlookers watched nearby, some even raising their cameras. Seeing that the officers had taken control of the three, Ryan finally breathed a sigh of relief. But then a wave of fear washed over him. If the three had had weapons or even guns, he would have been the one lying on the ground. Given another chance, he would never have intervened. "Are you alright?" Abigail rushed forward immediately, her face full of concern. Ryan pointed to Abigail's foot. She had not only lost her flip-flops but also cut her instep. Abigail, however, was still blaming Ryan for being too impulsive, worrying about him to the point of ignoring her pain. "So, this isn't a movie shoot, right?" Ryan heard a voice behind him. Turning around, he saw the man picking up the pieces from the ground. Ryan looked closely, and his head buzzed. The pieces formed a very peculiar shape, an oversized helmet with two round ears, just like Mickey Mouse from a Disney cartoon. Now Ryan finally understood what the round ball he had grabbed in his panic was. DJ Dead Rat's rat head helmet. The man's identity was obvious. Mr. Zimmerman, it's your turn. At this moment, a music festival staff member arrived at the scene, speechless at the mess of equipment. Chapter 18 Positive Promotion. But your men turned off the music, alerting those three, so my two football teammates and I gave chase. You know what happened next, Ryan calmly recounted. The officer sitting opposite him took notes, then looked at the sheriff beside him. Seeing no reaction from his superior, he nodded to Ryan. "Given your motives, you and your classmates won't be charged with assault. You can now." The sheriff suddenly raised his hand, stopping his subordinate. The sheriff stood up, walked over to Ryan, and sneered at the small cuts on the back of his hand. "Trying to be a hero in front of girls? Do you know how dangerous that was? What if those three black guys had guns?" He lectured Ryan with a seemingly unfriendly expression. The sheriff had a fleshy face and was almost bald, looking very fierce. "Suspects escape every day. Unless the city council provides more funding, no one can do anything. Now get out, and don't let me see you again, kid." He waved his hand, signaling Ryan to leave. When Ryan returned to the police station lobby, he saw Hank already finished his questioning and waiting for him. Paul went to the local hospital to treat his wounds. Also, Hank looked to his side, where Dead Rat and his group were. As one of the parties involved, they had also been brought in for brief questioning and were asked to provide testimony about the situation at the scene. "If you're tired of chasing, you don't have to destroy other people's property, do you?" Dead Rat said, seeing Ryan's pained expression. That shattered oversized helmet wasn't just a simple performance prop. The two white eyeballs contained LED lights, which were synchronized via a control panel or programming to change in rhythm with the music. In addition to the basic music monitoring system, the helmet's open mouth was made of special perforated material for easy observation of the external environment, as well as heat dissipation and ventilation structures, and additional support and fixing devices. In short, it was a novel contraption that needed to be custom-made and had multiple built-in devices. A replica certainly couldn't be obtained within a few days. Aren't there any spare parts? Ryan couldn't help but ask. Of course there are. Dead Rat stared at Ryan. He was wearing a baseball cap, and his physique was nothing compared to the tall and burly Ryan. He looked quite thin. But the other spare part was also crushed by your classmate, that tall, skinny guy. Zimmerman's personal computer was also completely destroyed, containing a series of music project files in progress. It's been sent to Apple's local after-sales department. We don't know if the data can be recovered, the henchman beside Dead Rat added. Ryan looked embarrassed, never expecting to cause such a disaster by accident. He first apologized to the other party, then recounted the situation. I've already heard the police's recap, and I know the main responsibility doesn't lie with you. Your heroic actions should be encouraged and respected. You're just students, it's just that I was unlucky, Dead Rat sighed. Ryan breathed a sigh of relief. Then Dead Rat changed the subject, pointing to a row of students not far away. Abigail and the other students were there, but because of the distance, they hadn't noticed Ryan. I heard from your friends that you're from Nashville, and that you're a local DJ whose electronic music is quite popular. Ryan nodded repeatedly, explaining that he came to Florida specifically to seek opportunities at the Winter Music Festival. Can I hear your music? Deadmau5 asked tentatively. His colleague immediately chimed in. Zimmerman is currently one of the top 5, even top 3, electronic musicians in North America. Last year, he founded the independent record label Mau5 Trap in Canada, trying to provide a good environment for new DJs. We have a good working relationship with EMI, and we have a huge tour planned for North America this year. Enough. I don't even know how to explain this to Marvin. Deadmau5 took off his baseball cap and ruffled his hair. The Beach Bash Festival was just a side event. The real highlight was the Ultra Music Festival a few days later. Last year, the festival attracted over 50,000 attendees, and this year marks its 10th anniversary. To celebrate, the organizers have assembled a stellar lineup, including 2 of the top 3 DJs from DJ Magazine's Top 100 DJs. A host of renowned DJs, including Tisto, Paul van Dyk, Carl Cox, Armin van Buuren, Benny Benassi, and David Guetta, will be participating. Deadmau5, a nickname for a DJ, absolutely didn't want to miss such a grand event, but unfortunately, at this crucial moment, the most critical piece of equipment broke down. Hey, little mouse, I heard you're in jail. What happened? A deep voice came from the police station entrance. Everyone turned to see a fat man in a floral shirt, baggy shorts, and a straw hat walk in, accompanied by a voluptuous woman with a Central American flair, wearing high heels and a long skirt that revealed her entire back. The plane has already taken off, flying directly to Amelia Island, arriving this evening, but now I have to have the pilot turn back. I've already paid for the round trip. You have to explain this to me, or you'll have to pay for it, the man shouted as he approached. I knew it. Ryan frowned upon hearing this. Marvin, I might have to withdraw from this year's Ultra Music Festival, Deadmau5 said to the chubby middle-aged man, who seemed to be Deadmau5's business partner or some kind of performance agent. Marvin looked at Ryan, then at Deadmau5. Does the media know about this? If this gets out, you're finished. Zimmerman, he should be an adult by now, right? Marvin asked. Ahem, things might not be as you think. Deadmau5 shook his head, half laughing and half crying, and began to explain the situation to Marvin. Marvin suddenly understood, then looked at Ryan from head to toe, scrutinizing every detail. Are you sure you can't perform? Both helmets are broken, and these things won't be fixed for days. Finally, Marvin said to Ryan in a serious tone, You brat, you've made us breach the contract. Call your parents, we need to talk this over. Marvin, Deadmau5 felt a pang of guilt. This isn't just your problem anymore, it includes me too. Do you know how much money we're going to lose going back and forth? Just because of a few clueless high school kids, someone has to teach them a lesson. Marvin wasn't going to let it go. He looked at Ryan again, frowning as he slowly spoke. However, considering the time and effort required for litigation, and considering you're a penniless wretch, I do have a special remedy. Be honest, tell the public that the performance equipment was damaged while apprehending criminals. The audience will understand. We can even bring this young man to the event. He's a DJ, right? Let him be a special guest at the show. The music festival has received a lot of complaints these past 2 years. He can have a positive publicity effect on the festival, showing others that rave parties aren't just a bunch of drug-drinking, lazy guys. What do you think of this plan? Marvin looked at Dead Rat. What about the helmet? Dead Rat suddenly asked. Before Marvin could speak, Ryan volunteered. The helmet can be easily replaced. Don't forget, there's a Disneyland in Orlando. I'll faint from the heat. Dead Rat quickly shook his head. It's alright, this young man will finish the rest of the performance for you. Marvin laughed heartily. Chapter 19 Sawtooth Wave. As Ryan left the police station, he saw Marvin with his Central American beauty by his side, pulling up to their car. The driver, already out, opened the door for him, and Marvin got in before the car sped away. He handles a lot of performance deals for famous DJs. He's very dedicated, but a bit flamboyant, as you've seen. Deadmau5 shrugged. Ryan then turned to Abigail and told her that he would be Deadmau5's guest performer. Abigail was naturally happy for Ryan and said she would go to the music festival, provided she could still get tickets. Ryan then got into Deadmau5's group's car, while Abigail and her classmates continued their sightseeing in Panama City. Not long after they parted, Abigail received a phone call. "You're coming too? I thought you didn't have time," Abigail exclaimed. A moment later, Ryan followed Dead Rat and his group back to the lounge behind Harpoon Harry's bar. No one had cleaned it. The room remained in the same mess as before: overturned tables and chairs, broken cables and PCBs, and a few drops of splattered blood on the floor. In its current state, Dead Rat was definitely unable to attend the Beach Bash Music Festival that day. "Let's cancel the nightclub performance at Daytona Beach tomorrow night too. We need to rehearse for the Ultra Festival performance again," Dead Rat said, looking at the chaotic room. "Can I come find you tonight, honey? I have to work now," Dead Rat's assistant said to the bikini-clad woman beside him. The remaining bikini-clad woman was also asked to leave. The assistant went out and found some help to tidy up the room, while Dead Rat discussed visual animation issues with another assistant. "Now that we don't need additional animation control or synchronization with the helmet, the VJ's job is actually simpler," the man nodded. VJ and DJ are similar names, originally referring specifically to those who played music videos on commercial music television channels such as MTV, VH1, Much Music, and Channel V, essentially video jockeys. Later, the term expanded to include staff specifically responsible for stage effects. The more sophisticated term is real-time visual designer, while the more down-to-earth term is animator for large-screen visual effects. DJs often perform in nightclubs, requiring high standards for sound, lighting, and visuals. Well-known DJs have dedicated staff responsible for their exclusive animation and visual effects, including a complete visual system used in music videos and even single covers, forming a visual calling card for the DJ. This trend has spread within the industry, and now the work of VJs and DJs is highly intertwined. There are even dedicated VJ exchange sessions at winter music conferences. "What about him?" Deadmau5 pointed to Ryan next to him. "Don't you understand what Marvin means?" The VJ laughed. "Just let him stand there as a mascot, or even just show his face at the beginning." Deadmau5 thought for a moment and nodded. "Actually, I have performance experience, I can," Ryan quickly began. But neither Deadmau5 nor the VJ gave Ryan a chance to speak, immediately moving on to the next topic. Ryan quickly realized that although he was allowed to participate in the discussion, he didn't actually have a chance to speak. Ryan planned to recommend his music to Deadmau5 that evening. Perhaps he would change his mind after listening to it. "Can I use this computer?" Ryan pointed to another laptop on the table that was still intact. Perhaps thinking Ryan was a bit bored, Deadmau5 nodded and even entered the password to help Ryan unlock it. At this moment, Ryan noticed that, unlike the thin, silver Apple laptop, this all-black laptop had a very cool ice blue backlit keyboard, and an alien head logo below the screen flashed with a breathing light. The messiness of the desktop was comparable to that of the one at Terry's house. Ryan did find many programming-related tutorials on the desktop, clearly indicating that Deadmau5 was not only a DJ but also a programmer. Then Ryan discovered a large number of video games on his computer. Crysis, BioShock, Call of Duty 4, and Metro 2033 are all recently released single-player blockbusters, as well as online games like World of Warcraft. Besides these, there are photos of various hardware and internal design blueprints for a mouse helmet. Through deadmau5's personal computer, Ryan could clearly sense that he was mostly a tech geek. Then, Ryan surprisingly found a test version of FL Studio in a corner. As a long-established software, FL has many fans. Driven by curiosity, Ryan entered it and his eyes lit up. There was a separate test plugin in the software, signed deadmau5. Judging from the sound wave icon, Ryan immediately realized it was a sound effects plugin. He looked up and saw deadmau5 still discussing with a VJ and assistant, so he quietly picked up his headphones and plugged them into the computer. After a simple trial, Ryan immediately became excited. Although the plugin was very cumbersome to operate, it had an extremely high degree of freedom, allowing him to customize almost any sound effect. In other words, he could create the special timbre he had in mind. However, since project files from different software are not compatible, Ryan had to create a new version of Terminator from scratch. Time ticked by. It's decided. Delete all the original opening recordings and replace them with an explanation of this unexpected event. The high school student will also appear at the beginning, first performing a live PA, live performance via sampler, similar to playing an electronic keyboard, then playing a track. If he has his own complete work, play his own music, otherwise, play one of my old tracks. Ryan, what do you think? deadmau5 paused for a moment before remembering Ryan's name. There was no response in the quiet room, only the crisp click-clack of Ryan clicking the mouse. Why are you like Zimmerman, forgetting everything else when you play games? The assistant muttered, walking behind Ryan and then pausing. Zimmerman, you have to see this, the assistant suddenly said nervously. deadmau5 also moved closer to Ryan, and only after seeing the screen did he realize that Ryan was actually creating music. It seemed like just borrowing the computer, but for a DJ, having someone operate his familiar software was like a woman forced to ride a wooden horse through the streets in the Middle Ages. The intense sense of exposure was unbearable. So he took off Ryan's headphones and prepared to close the software immediately. No, you have to listen to this. Ryan quickly grabbed the mouse and pressed play. Although the laptop speakers were terrible, lacking any bass and with abnormally blurry treble, the industrial-sounding intro, accompanied by a recurring buzzing effect, with several parts working together, created a concerto that stunned all three people in the room. During the interlude, the hoarse, distorted effect added an unexpected touch to the main track. Ryan couldn't help but smile. This was exactly the unique sound effect he had wanted, both piercing and thick, both rough and sharp, and with a certain degree of distortion and saturation. At the same time, deadmau5's mouth gaped open. Before pressing play, he had never imagined such a sound effect existed. Did you create this? deadmau5 asked in a low voice. Ryan paused for a moment, then looked at the plugin interface. Seeing the sound waves displaying a special, sawtooth-like waveform, an idea suddenly struck him. How about calling it sawtooth wave? Ryan suggested. At the same time, the music Ryan remade only reached a climax before abruptly stopping. Because of different software, I have to start over. The vocal samples are still on the computer in Nashville, so I can't create the climax in a short time, Ryan said. Nashville, can you call your family to upload it? deadmau5 asked slowly. There might not be anyone home. Ryan shook his head. Tremor was away on a business trip, filming the music video for a female singer named Jillian Hoff's That Song in My Head. Is that so? If it's convenient, I'll have my assistant take the nearest business class flight to Nashville and bring the samples over for you, deadmau5 continued, seemingly eager for Ryan to finish the official version of Tremor that night. Please recommend and vote. Chapter 20 Music Festival. Ryan quickly shook his head. No need for that. He then explained that his own vocals? The sample was just a simple 3, 2, 1, go, nothing irreplaceable. That's great. deadmau5 visibly breathed a sigh of relief, then grinned and said, I won't be able to sleep if I don't hear the full version. This is so cool, man. This time, Ryan completed the climax under the watchful eyes of deadmau5, his VJ, and his assistant. Isn't the bass too strong? It sounds like it's offbeat. Mickey Mouse quickly noticed that Ryan had made a mistake that only beginners make in the climax. That's what makes this music special. Ryan clearly had no intention of changing it. He had planned to do so from the beginning. deadmau5 helped Ryan find a new female vocal sample, and Ryan then spent only half an hour completing the section from the climax to the second interlude, then pasted an extra section of the climax, created an extra outro, and polished the various transitions. The final version of Tremor, at 4 minutes and 54 seconds, was now officially complete. Ryan added parentheses after the song title, writing original mix inside, making it the original remix. He had copied the character verbatim from the song title, which he recognized visually. At this point, Ryan's recreation of the original song in his mind was about 90%, with only a few minor, inconsequential details remaining. It could be considered the complete version of the song. In other words, are there other versions, like a radio version or an extended version? deadmau5 immediately asked. Radio versions typically have only 1 or 2 bars of intro, quickly getting into the song, and are usually used for radio broadcasts. Extended versions, on the other hand, have a very long intro of 12 to 20 bars, designed for DJs to splice the songs together on the set. These 3 versions, plus 2 other DJ remixes, could form a 5-track maxi single, or single album. In the past, 7-inch records would have different single versions engraved on sides A and B. In the digital age, this sales format falls somewhere between a single and an EP, priced between $2.99 and $4.99. After completing all production, Mickey Mouse and his 2 assistants became the first listeners of the original Tremor mix. "This song is quite different from the house music I've heard before," deadmau5 immediately remarked. "It has a stronger bass, it's big room house," the VJ could tell. deadmau5 became excited. If this single gets a good response at the music festival, it could definitely be commercially released in Canada. The next day, Ryan and deadmau5 arrived early at Double Hundred Park in downtown Miami, the location of this year's Ultra Music Festival's main stage. The park is conveniently located near the American Airlines Arena, home of the Miami Heat. The main stage framework was already in place, with 2 tower-like metal supports several feet high. Semi-transparent black gauze covered the front of the 2 towers, displaying the Ultra Music Festival's logo, shaped like a computer power button. Through the gauze, one could vaguely see the large matrix sound system hanging on the iron frames. Between the 2 towers lay the main stage, where some staff were still making final adjustments. Ryan followed Dead Rat and his group directly onto the stage. From this angle, he could see a long stretch of tents already pitched in a corner of the park, indicating that the most enthusiastic music festival attendees had arrived. Ryan also saw many people dressed in outlandish costumes, giant, furry boots in turquoise and bright pink, ballet tutus around their waists, and either bikinis, body paint, or nothing at all on their upper bodies. Some wore enormous fairy wings, as if they had just returned from the Wizard of Oz, or had artificial flower decorations resembling daisies on their heads. A normal person seeing people dressed like this might think they were obsessed. Clearly, this group was also mostly in a state of obsession. Ryan saw several staff members wearing reflective vests distributing some kind of item. The vests had "Dance Safe" printed on the back, with a free hotline number below the logo. The delivery bag should contain a few small umbrellas, a pair of earplugs, and a safety manual on how to take drugs without enduring death. Dead Rat shook his head, already used to it. "Every year there are cases of minors dying from drug overdoses at the scene, which is why you have to be here. You don't have tattoos, you played football in school, you don't smoke, and you even participated in a country music talent show. You represent a completely new image of a DJ. The entire industry needs to distance itself from rave now," Dead Rat continued. "That won't be easy." Ryan looked at the group of strangely dressed people in the distance. "You're right. Rave parties were popular in the US in the early 90s, but back then it wasn't like now, where you could openly hold them in parks. Those were all illegal parties, and Molly and HIV were rampant among adults and teenagers. The landmark event was Rave America in 1993, when over 17,000 people gathered at Nashville Orchard in Los Angeles. From then on, throughout the 90s, U.S. states and cities enacted all sorts of restrictive laws. At the strictest, people attending parties with friends in Chicago could be fined $1,000, and in New Orleans, party organizers could even be prosecuted as drug dealers, deadmau5 continued. "This is one of the reasons why American radio stations reject electronic music, but it's not the deciding factor. The fundamental reason is that record companies can't figure out how to develop electronic performances into professional artists who sell albums. No record company will invest resources in artists who don't see a return on their investment. However, All of this is quietly changing with the rise of the internet. People are requesting DJ remixes on YouTube, discussing them on social networks and message boards, and more people are participating in offline electronic music events like Ultra Music Festival, including Dumpunk's perfect performance at Coachella last year. The glowing, enormous split pyramid, they set a template for live electronic music performances. Therefore, I am more confident than ever about the rise of electronic music worldwide. Maybe before long, DJs will become the rock stars of this era. Dead Rat grinned. Ryan, however, wasn't excited. He felt that instead of thinking about this, he should rehearse tomorrow's performance. Dead Rat shook his head. A DJ is more of a performer than a musician. The more prepared you are, the less you need to do during the performance. You might as well just press play. I don't think that's right. I prefer to show my true self to the audience, including you. What kind of twisted logic is that? Seeing he couldn't convince him, Ryan had to say he needed to go back to the hotel to prepare and parted ways with Dead Rat. Reluctantly, Ryan returned to the hotel to rehearse the live PA segment for tomorrow's performance in his room, and also uploaded the complete original Tremor mix to several paid online download platforms, including Beatport. On his way back to the hotel, Ryan also rescued someone. The woman had an accident while paragliding over the sea. She drifted to the shore and ended up hanging from the top of a not-so-tall palm tree, completely entangled in the paragliding cables and unable to move. Ryan scrambled up, let her hold him, and then cut the cables, successfully bringing her down. Surprisingly, the woman was very tall, even taller than Ryan, with long blonde hair. After being brought down from the tree, she was surrounded by her companions, while Ryan quickly left. Ryan felt incredibly unlucky, encountering problems wherever he went, but then he remembered he was in Florida, and everything made sense. The following afternoon, the 2008 Ultra Music Festival officially began. Chapter 21 321 Go. Do the dance, wave your arms, stick to the beat, just easy as ABC, do the dance, wiggle your body, do the dance. Ryan, positioned at the back of the stage, heard a unique child's voice, the popular retro disco single Dance by the French electronic music duo Justice. Last year, it ranked 4th on Rolling Stone magazine's list of 100 songs of the year, and its lyrics reference many of Michael Jackson's songs, a tribute to him. Today at UMF, Justice remixed the song, changing the style from the original at the start of the second interlude, with a retro disco feel and a rhythmic bass. Ryan walked to the edge of the stage and saw a dense crowd gathered in front of it. Such a massive crowd was something he'd only ever seen in Tremor's music videos. It would be a lie to say he wasn't nervous. Not only Ryan, but even deadmau5 looked more serious than usual. Performing after Justice's hit single was undoubtedly stressful. The song peaked at number 1 on the UK dance chart and reached number 10 on the US Billboard Club Dance chart. While it might seem like only 10th place, the Billboard Club Dance chart is based on playlists from nightclubs across the US. Currently, Madonna holds the most number 1 spot on this chart, followed by Janet Jackson, and then surprisingly, Mariah Carey. Clearly, this isn't a chart specifically for electronic music. This indirectly confirms that Dance's number 10 ranking is quite significant. Ryan returned from the edge, wearing the same red suit as deadmau5, plus a white shirt, red tie, and red gloves. deadmau5's mascot was now a plush toy, simply painted the same red as before. After Justice finished their performance, Ryan and deadmau5 were led onto the stage by the staff. As an outdoor music festival, the event wasn't as tightly organized as a televised concert, with a few minutes allotted for impromptu preparations when changing performers. Ryan, standing on the stage, watched as a large number of audience members turned and left. With the sun setting, the ticket holders who had watched the entire afternoon's performances were already starving and planned to take this opportunity to eat and rest before returning in the evening to watch Tisto's live performance on the main stage, the real highlight. Besides the main stage, 4 other stages were currently operating in different areas, including the stage of renowned British DJ Carl Cox, a pioneer of house music, who brought his solo stage Carl Cox and Friends to UMF this year, the Rabbit Hole stage, featuring experimental psychedelic music by the American band Rabbit on the Moon, the Amnesia Ibiza Arena, featuring Amnesia, one of Ibiza's oldest and most famous clubs, with the festival bringing the club's team to provide an authentic Ibiza experience, and the Dance Rock stage, a dedicated stage for rhythm-focused techno music. In short, This year's Ultra Music Festival offered audiences a variety of options. After some people left, several thousand people remained at the main stage. Ryan and Dead Rat gave the staff an OK sign, and then a pre-prepared recording began playing. Dead Rat, wearing a helmet to conceal his face, didn't speak to the audience through a microphone, as that would ruin the mystery surrounding his disguise. Hi everyone, I'm Dead Rat. It's great to be at UMF. As you can see, my appearance has changed a bit. A few days ago, before a performance, 3 dangerous sex offenders broke into my room. My colleague Dr. Ray successfully subdued them, making the potential victims safe again. Unfortunately, some equipment was damaged during Ray's struggle. But I think it was worth it. What do you think? The audience responded enthusiastically. As viewers who knew the whole story, they obviously didn't care whether Dead Rat wore an elaborate custom-made prop or a simple plush toy. They looked pretty much the same anyway. As for the original opening remarks, they were taken from Dead Rat's first YouTube video, serving as a kind of self-introduction. Amid cheers from the audience, Ryan began his live PA performance, playing a melody on the square buttons of the sampler, much like playing an electronic keyboard. Ryan silently recited the melody in his mind. He had repeated this section several times the night before. Although he played it skillfully enough, Ryan could hardly be called a composer now. The original owner of this body could at least write a song, but now Ryan's original ability was almost zero, aside from songs that looked like they were plagiarized. As a result, the melody he played sounded like a middle school student haphazardly playing a tune. Boos began to rise from the crowd. Wearing a red suit, Ryan's forehead was covered in beads of sweat. His nervousness caused him to play faster and faster, and the melody became increasingly chaotic. Just when Ryan felt that everything was about to collapse, the sampler suddenly malfunctioned, unable to play any melody anymore. 2 seconds later, as the Dead Rat next to him pushed the button on the mixer, the sound system began to play a fixed rhythm. Obviously, the Dead Rat had taken over and saved the day. Ryan breathed a sigh of relief. At least he hadn't ruined the whole performance. Look how nervous he is. I wonder if he wore diapers before going on stage. A tall, blonde, curly-haired girl wearing sunglasses grinned from the back of the audience. Standing next to her, Abigail, a more well-proportioned girl with long, bronze-colored curly hair and rabbit teeth, empathized with Ryan's nervousness. He doesn't have your performance experience. In terms of experience, Ryan was indeed inferior to Taylor, who had performed at the US Open and NBA Games at just over 10 years old. Just as more people were starting to think they should go eat or check out other stages, the music suddenly changed, suddenly shifting from deadmau5's famous progressive house music, not exactly, to a unique melody. A special timbre that no one in the audience had ever heard before. Backstage, a robust middle-aged man was chatting with festival staff. I can feel the rapid development of electronic music in the US. The audience here is almost on par with Amsterdam Dance Festival. The speaker had short black hair, his broad shoulders barely concealed by his short-sleeved shirt, a deep voice, and sharply defined features. Standing next to this burly man was a middle-aged man in a black shirt, somewhat overweight, with a slicked-back hairstyle revealing a receding hairline and a thick beard. He humbly said, "This place can't compare to AD. Last year we received dozens of complaints, and this year it will only be worse. You must go to AD sometime." This man was Russell Fabish, one of the 2 founders of the Ultra Music Festival. The downsides of outdoor music festivals. Contact me anytime if you want to come, the burly man nodded. Russell Fabish bumped fists with him. For the festival founder to personally accompany him, this burly man was clearly no ordinary DJ guest. Just then, music came from the front of the stage. The burly man's expression suddenly froze, then he moved closer to the front of the stage, where he could hear it more clearly. "Who's performing on stage now?" the burly man asked. As the music playing drifted backstage, his expression suddenly changed, a flurry of emotion shifting between curiosity, surprise, doubt, and admiration. Russell Fabish, deadmau5, a young guy who's only emerged in the last 2 years, from Canada, he'd clearly forgotten that deadmau5 had brought an extra guest today. "That sound is fantastic," the burly man exclaimed. "It's a completely new sound. He's certainly good at fiddling with those sound effects plugins," Russell thought back. "I'll have to talk to him after his performance." The burly man's curiosity about deadmau5 grew stronger. In the audience area, Taylor and Abigail noticed the people around them were captivated by the electronic music playing. This is completely different from the version we first heard in the studio. Taylor recognized it. The melody was still the same, but the timbre and detail were far richer than before. Quantitative changes had led to qualitative changes. Now the song was incredibly catchy, something you'd want to hear again and again. Had he really done it? A thought popped into Taylor's mind. Then, the music entered a gradual build-up, and with the layering of various progressive effects, the energy began to gather. 3, 2, 1, go! The audience on the main stage erupted into a state of frenzy. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Tug of War. The deafeningly loud bass, delivered by dozens of subwoofers arrayed in a matrix, poured energy into the park, transforming the Centennial Memorial Park into a sea of revelry at sunset. A dead rat wearing a plush toy headpiece leaped onto the DJ stage, bouncing on its tiptoes to the rhythm. Below the stage, the audience joined in, as if participating in some kind of fitness exercise, dancing in unison to the beat. Taylor and Abigail, caught up in the atmosphere, were also swept up in the excitement. Taylor raised her hands and jumped around haphazardly. Although she was enthusiastic, her movements were far from coordinated, resembling a zombie dance or a stir-fry pancake. In comparison, Abigail looked much more natural. Clearly, Taylor had no talent for dancing. On stage, Ryan finally witnessed a chaotic scene from the Tremor music video. Several women in the front rows, wearing only underwear, rode on their boyfriend's shoulders, dancing wildly, while others waved various national flags. The lighting setup on set was far inferior to what was shown in the video, not to mention the smoke machines, fire machines, foam machines, and confetti used in the music video to create atmosphere. It seemed that, like electronic music itself, live performances had much room for improvement. Ryan thought to himself. At this point, Tremor was reaching its outro. Normally, deadmau5 should be playing another track simultaneously and mixing it with a mixer, but Ryan noticed that deadmau5 wasn't moving, he was simply standing there. Just as Ryan hesitated whether to nudge him as a warning, he saw deadmau5, wearing a hood, suddenly turn around and walk backstage. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. After a moment's hesitation, he decisively turned the dial himself. Having DJed in Nashville nightclubs many times before, this wasn't difficult for him. On the other side, deadmau5 had just arrived backstage when he lost his balance and collapsed. Staff rushed over, and someone removed his fuzzy hood, revealing his face completely flushed and his short hair soaked with sweat. He was already somewhat frail, and the high temperature inside the hood, combined with his recent jumping around, had caused him to suffer heat stroke. Russell, the music festival co-founder who had been backstage, had already left. deadmau5 was rushed to a local hospital. The burly man who had spoken with the festival founder was now making his final preparations before going on stage, preoccupied with deadmau5's safety and unaware that the unique voice was created by the high school students currently performing on stage. Ryan, having successfully saved the day, left amidst cheers and applause. Upon returning backstage, he saw a man of similar height and build preparing to replace him. The man seemed surprised to see Ryan and deadmau5 wearing the same red suit, and the two brushed past each other. Ryan then spotted the VJ from deadmau5's team and learned about deadmau5's heat stroke. He was surprised that Marvin's prediction had come true. By the way, who is that guy just now? Ryan couldn't help but ask. Tisto? Don't you know him? The VJ asked, quite surprised. Should I know him? Of course. He's a leading figure in the DJ world. Before you were even born, he was already playing new rhythms and acid house music in nightclubs, winning numerous European music awards. He was a three-time winner of the Top 100 DJs list from 2002 to 2003. And he even performed in the opening ceremony of the 2004 Athens Olympics, the VJ introduced with great seriousness. The prestige of the Olympic opening ceremony goes without saying, and the Top 100 he mentioned refers to the annual Top 100 DJs ranking by a British DJ magazine, conducted by reader votes, a highly prestigious honor in the DJ world today. Afterwards, Ryan and VJ went to Jackson Memorial Hospital near Double Hundred Park, where deadmau5 was receiving treatment. By the time Ryan arrived, deadmau5 had already woken up and his first question to Ryan was about the performance. The audience's reaction was even stronger than when Justice was on stage, Ryan replied. Deadmau5 breathed a sigh of relief. The performance arrangements were now complete. The music festival would continue all day tomorrow. Before Ryan could even mention the Winter Music Conference, Deadmau5, lying in his hospital bed, brought up the issue of Tremor's single album's release in Canada. The reason Deadmau5 only mentioned Canada and not North America was because his current distribution channel was an independent record company based in Australia, which had no ability to release in the US market. Admittedly, Deadmau5 could have kept this fact from Ryan, but he chose to be honest. Ryan, this might be the beginning of our collaboration, Deadmau5 said, valuing the talent Ryan had shown. Ryan, of course, had no reason to refuse. Although Canada wasn't among the top 10 music markets globally, accounting for only a small portion, 2% to 3%, it was still a first step. Next, let's talk about revenue sharing. Considering the original Tremor track is already produced, production costs are negligible. We'll only discuss sales revenue sharing. According to industry practice, record companies charge higher revenue shares to newcomers and unsigned artists, usually 50%. The sales revenue I'm referring to is net income after deducting distributor profits and marketing costs, Deadmau5 explained. Let's do a simple calculation. Assuming the single album sells for $3.99, after deducting the sales platform's share, marketing costs, and then half of the publisher's net income, Ryan's pre-tax income per album sold is likely no more than $1, and that's in an ideal scenario. If Deadmau5's record company intentionally manipulates marketing costs, this figure won't exceed 0.5%. Don't forget the single album also includes remixes of Tremor by 2 DJs, otherwise, it wouldn't sell for $3.99. Adding that in, his profit would be even smaller. This isn't a normal situation anymore. We just finished a performance together, Ryan said immediately, feeling that this condition was worse than not signing at all. Young man, do you know what industry practice means? It means no one is immune, not just me, but everyone else, including you. This is non-negotiable. You think the split is too small? Of course, because this is just the beginning. We have other opportunities to collaborate in the future. Business isn't just a one-time thing. For the second and third releases, the record company can take only 30%. If you become popular, the split can be discussed further. Deadmau5 reiterated that business is business. He valued Ryan's talent, but that didn't mean he had to sacrifice his own interests. You may not understand my situation. I'm currently staying at someone's house, and I need income. Ryan used Therese as a shield again. Then I'll take you on the tour. After Ultra Music Festival, Marvin has arranged for me to perform in more than a dozen nightclubs in North America. The first stop will be New York. Deadmau5 came up with a compromise. How much will I get per show? One show? $500 to $700. If the nightclubs are generous enough, the pay will be even higher. Deadmau5 thought for a moment before saying, you'll be responsible for the opening and warm-up performances, which will take about an hour and a half. Then it'll be my turn. You'll also be on stage for the extra performances in the early morning hours. What about the travel expenses? I'm still studying in Nashville, Ryan asked. You don't need to pay for that. Deadmau5 was surprisingly agreeable, mainly because the organizers covered the travel expenses, which weren't included in the performance fee. At least it was more than what he'd earn working in a Nashville nightclub. 40%, that's the limit I can accept. Otherwise, there's nothing to discuss, Ryan finally stated his bottom line. Deadmau5 was clearly somewhat helpless, finding this high school student surprisingly difficult for the first time. Performance or profit sharing, you can only choose one. Deadmau5 took a deep breath. Don't do that. These two things don't conflict. I can perform even harder. I really need this income to finish my studies. It's my living expenses. Ryan's tone was pleading again, his mood changing faster than flipping through a book. Before Deadmau5 could speak, Ryan noticed his hesitation and quickly said, okay, it's decided then. Deadmau5 let out a long sigh, looking exhausted. Ryan seemed to have gotten the conditions he wanted, but he didn't seem relaxed either. Deadmau5's record company was, at best, a small company, and negotiations with other record companies would only be more difficult. As he left the hospital, Ryan picked up his phone and saw a text message from Abigail. The performance was amazing. You have no idea how many people cheered for you. Taylor and I just arrived in Miami this afternoon. Chapter 23. This coke is really intoxicating. High school and college students all over the country are on spring break. What's wrong with me taking a few days off? Why do you have more questions than Rick Barter, Taylor manager during his Big Machine days? From WME, Taylor, fully armed with a baseball cap, muttered in the restaurant. Everyone else was getting ready to go back to Nashville, but Taylor suddenly said he wanted to come, so he came with me to Miami to see your show, Abigail added. I didn't come to see your show, I just happened to be passing by. By the way, that dance track sounded pretty good. I have to admit now, you're much more talented in that area than in country music. Taylor raised an eyebrow, objectively evaluating Ryan. Ryan then talked about his negotiations with deadmau5, expressing his dissatisfaction with the extremely unfair profit-sharing arrangement. 40%, it's already quite an achievement to make the record company suffer. deadmau5 is right about one thing, that's definitely industry practice, Taylor confirmed deadmau5's statement. What about your record contract with Big Machine? Ryan then asked. Taylor shook her head. Sorry, I can't disclose the specific contract terms. Ryan then mentioned that he was going to attend several sessions at the Winter Music Conference the next day to chat with staff from the record company's A&R, Artist and Repertoire, department. This department is responsible for discovering and training singers or artists, signing contracts with singers, finding suitable songwriters and record producers for singers, and acting as a link between record companies and newcomers. However, considering the so-called industry practice, Ryan didn't have high expectations for tomorrow's exchanges. Abigail then talked about her plans. Taylor came to Miami last year, and this year she wants to go somewhere different. How about going to Redneck Mud Park in Punta Gorda? There's a trucking event there in 2 days, Ryan suggested. Punta Gorda is a small town in Florida, and every year the Trucks Gone Wild event attracts many southern rednecks. Modified trucks roll around in the mud, accompanied by southern redneck girls in bikinis and the redneck's favorite barbecue, authentic redneck style. However, this kind of activity is attractive to boys, but not necessarily to girls. Since the two couldn't think of a better place, they reluctantly agreed. As for me, I have to go back to school after the Winter Music Conference, Ryan said, explaining his plans. He needed to go back to school, otherwise Teresa would definitely be angry. Do you really need to be so diligent with such simple homework? Let Abigail tutor you later, Taylor immediately said. Yet, Ryan, are you expecting the two of us girls to drive a monster truck without you? Abigail also insisted that Ryan stay. Unable to resist the two girls' insistence, Ryan finally agreed. So, what are your plans for tomorrow? Ryan asked. Abigail expressed her desire to stay with Ryan, and Taylor, who had originally been excited to explore Miami, found herself alone and had no choice but to accompany Ryan. That night, the three stayed at the Biscayne Bay Marriott Hotel near Double Hundred Park, and the night passed uneventfully. The following morning, Ryan and two girls entered the main venue with the invitation given to them by the Dead Rat. It resembled an electronic music festival exhibition, with booths from various DJ equipment manufacturers, demonstrations of cutting-edge VJ technology, and of course, a host of independent European record labels. Ryan had never heard of many of these names, but the A&R staff recognized him. In just one night, Ryan's performance on the main stage was remembered by those who were interested. However, as Ryan had anticipated, while the independent record label seemed to offer attractive additional conditions, such as various artist training programs, these were essentially variations of upfront payments. The cost was ultimately borne by the client, and the terms involving core interests were quite harsh. After spending the afternoon interacting with numerous A&R staff members, Ryan became increasingly hopeless about signing a contract. But you have to choose one, Taylor remarked, sitting in the lounge area with a large iced drink. She was fully dressed, wearing a hat, glasses, mask, and triangular protective gear, afraid of being recognized. However, at this point, she could only be considered moderately famous, and perhaps her reaction was a bit over the top. You didn't choose either back then, Ryan asked instinctively as he sat down. Taylor hadn't chosen to continue working with RCA 4 years ago. My situation was different from yours. My dad was negotiating with RCA for a while, and he asked many friends. In the end, it was his then manager who contacted Scott, Taylor explained. Contrary to the widely circulated version that Scott met Taylor performing at the Bluebird Cafe and was immediately awestruck, the truth was that Taylor's team had contacted Scott before the performance that day. Judging from Taylor's tone, her father seemed to have a lot of influence. Besides, I felt I shouldn't wait any longer. I had confidence in myself and could create catchy songs, Taylor said, explaining her thoughts at the time. That's right, I had confidence in myself too, Ryan said slowly. It wasn't so much confidence as it was reliance on déjà vu. For Ryan, the key to fame lay in this déjà vu. If this déjà vu only appeared once, signing with any record company wouldn't matter. Conversely, if this déjà vu continued to provide him with hit songs, he wouldn't need to depend on record companies at all. This seemingly ordinary remark caused Taylor, sitting next to him, to suddenly pause, instinctively looking up. From this angle, she could just see Ryan's profile. Taylor suddenly felt that Ryan resembled herself from a few years ago, a strange sense of familiarity washing over her. Abigail returned at that moment carrying 2 dirty hot dogs. What are you two talking about here? Abigail looked at her best friend warily. Talking about those ruthless record companies, Taylor took the hot dogs and immediately wiped away the colorful sauces that made them so dirty. This thing will turn me into a fat woman. Taylor removed one side of her mask, and to avoid staining the food with her lipstick, she took a small bite of the sizzling, browned sausage with a grimacing expression. It's delicious, Taylor jumped up and down excitedly, but still picked the sausage out with her fingers and placed it on Ryan's hot dog. But I really can't eat it, she shook her head with a mournful face. Abigail frowned at this. You're almost turning into a slender man. Then, seeing Ryan chewing on the sausage Taylor had bitten without any concern, her mood worsened, and she squeezed between Ryan and Taylor to sit down. After leaving the Winter Music Conference, the three returned to the main stage in the evening. The 2-day Ultra Music Festival had 8 stages and more than 140 DJs. Currently performing on the main stage was a DJ from the UK named Kevin Harris. The audience around them was even smaller than yesterday, and the atmosphere wasn't very lively. Ryan and his 2 friends then went to the indoor stage Carl Cox and Friends to watch a live performance by French DJ David Guetta. Neither of them left a deep impression on Ryan. Taylor, on the other hand, was very excited, dancing until he was sweating profusely. Ryan could then clearly feel the crowd gathering towards the main stage. From other people, he learned that Armin van Buuren, also known as Armin, was going to perform. Like Tiso, he was from the electronic music powerhouse Netherlands and was last year's #1 on the top 100 list. Armin has been remembered for his signature trance music since his debut. Trance music combines the strong rhythms of techno with the catchy melodies of house music, making it a genre that blends the strengths of many genres in electronic music. As the name suggests, trance music may also have a certain hallucinogenic effect. Not long after they reached the main stage, it got completely dark. Ryan and his 2 companions noticed people around them pulling out mozzarella and popping it into their mouths, immediately starting to sway wildly. Others were laughing out loud after using inhalers, and further away, someone suddenly stood there like a zombie. Clearly, as the music grew more intense, this group of audience members were also unleashed. Ryan was sweating for Armin standing on the stage. He led the 2 away, and just as they stepped out of the crowd, they bumped into a group of oddly dressed freaks. Ryan realized they had gone the wrong way and mistakenly entered the tent area. Not far away, a brown-skinned man wearing a women's bikini but sporting a thick gray beard, resembling a Walmart shopping bag, strode towards them, casually picking up a drink from the table. Try this happy water, you'll have an extraordinary night. The man handed 2 drinks to Ryan and Taylor respectively. Ryan shook his head repeatedly and took 2 steps back. Burp, Taylor put down her cup and burped. She was indeed thirsty. This cola is pretty strong, she grinned when she saw Ryan and Abigail staring at her with disbelief. Chapter 24 I must detoxify her. What's in the Coke? I'm so hot. In the Marriott hotel room, Taylor's face was flushed. She kicked off the blanket she was wrapped in and writhed on the bed like a maggot, muttering to herself. Ryan stood by the bed, holding his phone, talking to someone. Abigail was in the bathroom emptying Taylor's vomit. Ryan had wanted to take her to the hospital, but Abigail, worried about the impact on Taylor's public image if things were exposed, insisted on bringing her back. About half an hour after returning to the hotel, Taylor had gone from ecstasy to sadness to rage to cold, and now she felt feverish. When Abigail returned, Ryan put down his phone. What did they say? Does Taylor have a family history of hereditary diseases, including various cardiovascular diseases? Ryan asked. Does high myopia count? She always wears contact lenses. Is she pregnant? Ryan asked again. Are you kidding me? Abigail chuckled. Seeing Ryan's serious expression, Abigail quickly suppressed her smile and glanced at Taylor, who was lying on her back on the bed, tugging at her collar. As far as I know, no. Ryan relaxed slightly. It's not life-threatening for now, but we'll need to observe for any after effects. He had just called Dance Safe's public service hotline to report Taylor's various symptoms. They asked for some basic information about Taylor, including her age, and then determined that she had taken a mixture of several club drugs. Without further symptoms such as epilepsy, shock, or convulsions, she was considered to be in good health. Hearing this, Abigail breathed a sigh of relief and went to check on Taylor. So hot, Taylor was still rolling around on the bed. Just then, Taylor's phone rang in her handbag. Abigail took it out. It's Andrea, Taylor's mother, calling. You watch her, I'll go answer it, Abigail said. Hello, hi, Andrea, Taylor and I are in Miami. She's taking a shower, and we're getting ready for bed. I'll keep an eye on her. Abigail's voice faded into the distance. Ryan went to the bedside and saw Taylor with her mouth wide open, panting heavily. Her golden curly hair was loose, partially obscuring her face. In the light of the bedside lamp, half of her face was hidden in darkness, revealing her pink lips, slightly parted teeth, lowered eyebrows, and half-open, unfocused eyes. She seemed to be in a half-dreaming, half-awake state. She reached out to grab Ryan's clothes, as if trying to get him closer. Medical research shows that taking morally, this harmful substance, makes it easier to induce empathy. The English word empathy comes from the ancient Greek word empatheia, meaning physical emotion or passion. Obviously, this stimulating effect makes it easier for men and women to engage in intimate behavior. Come here, Taylor propped her head up, raised her arms to hug Ryan's waist, rested her head against his stomach, and grinned foolishly, as if she had found some treasure. Anyway, it was her initiative, so it can't be considered taking advantage of someone in distress, right? Ryan muttered. The next second, Abigail returned to the room with her phone, paused for a moment when she saw the two of them so close, then immediately walked over and forcibly pulled Taylor away from Ryan. You really have the heart to watch your friend suffer, Ryan spoke in the tone of a compassionate doctor. What else? Should I ask you to detoxify her? Abigail retorted. Ryan would be more than happy to do that. Helping others is a virtue. For her fans, I must save her. I don't need you, I can just use my hands. Abigail shoved Ryan aside and pushed him all the way out the door, then took the room key and put it in her pocket, finally closing the door to Taylor's room. In the long, quiet hotel corridor, only Ryan and Abigail remained. You like her? Abigail didn't ask, but stated. Ryan shook his head. Let's leave it to someone else. What does she have that I don't, besides being able to write 2 lousy songs? Did you even? I only met her once before I met you, Ryan said. And she can't be an obstacle between us, Abigail nodded. She had made plans for this spring break, but too many things happened, including her best friend's unexpected arrival in Florida. Now, all obstacles were finally cleared. Who says otherwise? Ryan retorted. The next morning, Ryan opened his eyes and saw Abigail with her copper-red curly hair loose, the blanket pulled down, revealing her entire back. He could also see 2 dimples on her lower back, the kind only young women with a balanced figure and a slender build would have, hence the name Saint's Dimples. Ryan, naked, went to the computer in the room and logged into his MySpace account. As he expected, with the end of the Ultra Music Festival, he had begun to attract a considerable amount of attention from electronic music fans, and his follower count had seen a surge, jumping 2,000 in a single day yesterday, successfully breaking the 5,000 mark. However, this was nothing compared to Taylor Swift, a shining new star who had just received a Grammy nomination for Best New Artist last month. Taylor Swift's MySpace follower count had surpassed 1 million and was now approaching 2 million. Clicking into her page, Ryan was immediately amazed by its exquisite decor, including the buttons, titles, and page background. Taylor Swift had a completely different skin from the official template, highly fitting the country style, clearly a custom design. One side of the page was a navigation bar, and the other side was a streaming section for currently available music. The middle section was a blog-like section, including news about her from mainstream media, updates on her new album, and her personal activities. Each post had been edited and redesigned, and the visuals were exquisite. Furthermore, each blog post saw intense interaction from fans. In contrast, Carrie Underwood, another country girl star whose current status clearly surpasses Taylor's, Has a similar number of followers on MySpace, but her replies and likes are only 1/10, or even 1/20th, of Taylor's. Returning to his own page felt like stepping from a luxurious villa back into a bare-bones apartment. Fan replies were mostly simple phrases like "great music" and "release a new song soon." However, one reply caught Ryan's eye. "Remember me? The one hanging from the palm tree on Hot Beach." The profile picture showed a beautiful blonde woman. Ryan, preoccupied with his performance the next day and with the approaching dusk, hadn't paid any attention. Clicking on the profile revealed she was a student at the Victorian College of the Arts at the University of Melbourne, presumably visiting Miami with classmates during spring break. Ryan remembered the girl as very tall, even taller than Taylor, with flowing blonde hair and a reserved smile, possessing an elegant, European aristocratic air. She had most likely seen Ryan's performance at the Ultra Music Festival and followed him to his social media. Everything was fine except that he was thousands of miles away in Australia, with a full 14-hour time difference. Ryan thought for a moment and decided to follow him back. Ryan then logged into the official websites of various paid music download platforms. Upon entering Beatport's backend, the nearly four-figure number of paid downloads from yesterday caught Ryan's eye. This was a new high since Taylor's social media recommendation, clearly due to the exposure from the Ultra Music Festival. In addition, she received an in-app message: "Congratulations, your uploaded song Tremor, Original Mix, has been selected by our platform editors for the current hot recommendation, for a period of," the time frame showed, the next week. Ryan immediately switched to the homepage and carefully checked, finally finding the current hot recommendation section at the very bottom of the website. Ryan refreshed the page repeatedly. Every 5 refreshes, she saw her song listed. The entire recommendation section had 20 slots, meaning a total of 100 songs. Ryan could only console himself with the thought that every little bit helps. Just then, he heard Abigail wake up. Ryan glanced at the time, immediately rushed back to his seat. A beautiful day begins with exercise. Chapter 25 Teen Idols. Abigail was a member of the school's swimming team, and her physique was far more robust than Taylor's, allowing Ryan to be less cautious. After a while, Ryan let out a long sigh, entering a state of clear, thoughtless tranquility, the so-called sage's state. Abigail collapsed in response, looking even more exhausted than Ryan. Clearly, the intense physical exertion between athletes was far beyond what ordinary people could experience. Abigail grabbed Ryan's water glass from the bedside table and took a large gulp, then pulled Ryan out of bed to take a shower. Emerging from the bathroom, Abigail practically clung to Ryan. "You really didn't, you know, with Taylor." Abigail was still nagging at the question. Ryan shook his head. "HMPH, Abigail sneered, probably not quite believing him. "She must have a thing for you. On the way to Miami, she was asking about us, and she said a lot of bad things about you," Abigail complained. "What did she say?" "She said you used to be a model, had a messy private life, and often provided services to middle-aged women," Abigail said. "Also, back in the stands at the stadium, the moment I mentioned wanting her to set us up, she immediately panicked." "I can't hide her little tricks from her," Abigail said confidently. "So what? She's interested in more than just me," Ryan said with self-awareness. For a teenager, the world might be binary, with only 2 states, like or dislike. But for adults, like or dislike is just one factor, not even a major one. Taylor is both a passionate woman and a sophisticated egoist. She knows what she needs most, and when a man can't give her what she wants, she quickly withdraws. Moreover, she's adept at portraying herself as the object, passively receiving everything from beginning to end. This is why she can write those songs with such sincerity. If you interview the boys in those songs, you'd likely get completely different versions. You're right, she's definitely had her share of relationships. Objectively, it's partly because she's so outstanding. You know, guys see dating her as an honor, something they can brag about repeatedly, so she should be more cautious. Why should she be cautious? Everyone knows they never intended to be together for long, it's just dating, Abigail blurted out, then realized her mistake and chuckled awkwardly. "But not me. Anyway, don't mention her in front of me again." Abigail pinched Ryan's arm, warning him. "Aren't you afraid she'll get jealous?" Ryan's fingers ran through Abigail's damp hair. "I gave her a chance to admit it, but she might not like you, so this time I'll make her jealous too." Abigail bit Ryan's palm. Then she turned her head away, and after a long while, her voice rang out, "Why do all the men revolve around her? Her tone was slightly resentful. Ryan and Abigail returned to Taylor's room after breakfast. The room smelled strangely of vomit. It seemed Taylor had vomited again last night. Abigail walked to the bedside and lifted the covers. Ryan, standing behind her, could vaguely see Taylor's disheveled clothes. Abigail quickly moved aside, blocking Ryan's view, afraid he might take advantage of her. Women's friendship, Ryan smirked. Taylor slowly woke up, her complexion seemingly normal, and immediately covered her forehead. I feel like I'm splitting in two. Why did I drink that stuff? Taylor said, her face contorted with grief. Luckily, we were here with you this time. Otherwise who knows who would have picked you up, Abigail said, sitting on the edge of the bed with concern. Taylor looked up, first at Abigail, then at Ryan behind her. I remember you two left the room together last night, Taylor said softly. If I didn't push him out, would I have left him alone with you? Abigail countered with a smile. True, Taylor nodded, finding no logical flaw in her statement. Abigail spent the entire day taking care of Taylor, only sneaking into Ryan's room at night. The next day, the three took a tour bus to Punta Gorda, located on the other side of the Florida peninsula. Compared to the international metropolises of the West Coast, the East Coast was relatively less bustling. The town of Punta Gorda is adjacent to the Gulf of Panama, and besides fishing, tourism is a major pillar of the local economy. The Hillbilly Mud Park located there attracts many tourists every year. After getting off the tour bus, the three transferred to a pre-booked park shuttle bus, enjoying the natural wetland scenery along the way. The air quality is much better than Miami, Taylor said, applying sunscreen to her neck. It is pretty good. Abigail also took a deep breath. She was wearing a very short t-shirt today, revealing her abs, paired with hot pants, making her even hotter than Taylor. As she spoke, she glanced back at Ryan intentionally or unintentionally. This wasn't the first time she had flirted with Ryan right under Taylor's nose. Sitting behind them, Ryan couldn't help but ask a question that had been bothering him all day. Why is there so much discussion about you online? It's far more than other country singers, Ryan asked. Envious, Taylor replied smugly. The reason is simple, most of my fans are teenage women, Gen Z, so naturally they're more active online. Ordinary working-class people can't afford to follow celebrity gossip so intensely and interact so frequently online. I've seen people calling themselves Swifties online, Abigail interjected. Ryan suddenly realized that the audience for country music is mostly middle-aged. From this perspective, Taylor was less of a country singer and more of a teen idol singing country ballads. But being a teen idol isn't something anyone can just do. First, the songs have to resonate with teenagers. I'm at a disadvantage in this regard, Ryan thought, realizing a harsh reality. My songs are only for party animals, right? Taylor turned around, her large sunglasses reflecting Ryan's image. You're not thinking of going down that path too, are you? Your looks are perfect, but your music style is off, Taylor chuckled. A few years ago, boy bands like SYNC and the Backstreet Boys had tons of crazy female fans, but they're all outdated now, Abigail chimed in. Stratford, Ontario, Canada. In a cramped apartment, a boy was cooking alone in the kitchen. Because of his height, he had to stand on a stool to reach the stove. His cooking consisted of heating up some discounted hamburger patties and some semi-finished vegetables, leftovers from yesterday. Behind him, the radio was playing Chris Brown's R&B single With You, released last year. The boy hummed along in a childlike voice, swaying slightly to the rhythm. With you, girl, with you, with you, with you. The boy's voice was clear and bright, like a child's, and he handled the R&B vocal runs with ease, displaying singing talent at a young age. Bang! The crisp sound of a wooden door opening and closing. The boy put down the worn metal spatula and ran to the door. Mom! You're home from get off work. Or, are you unemployed again? Surprised, the boy immediately realized something, his expression turning panicked. The woman with slightly disheveled black hair tossed several letters and utility bills onto the table, then bent down and touched the boy's forehead. Mom just took a day off. Remember Mr. Bryan, the record company executive from the US I told you about last time? He'll be here soon, and he's meeting us now, yay, the boy jumped up excitedly. His mother led him to the bathroom, combed his hair, and dressed him in his new clothes, which he only wore every Christmas. The two then took a train to the train station. When they arrived, Mr. Bryan was already waiting for them at a nearby restaurant. This record company executive looked remarkably young, So much so that the boy's mother suspected he hadn't even graduated from college. I currently live in Atlanta and am an entertainment consultant for the Atlanta Hawks. I also founded a record label and partner with Universal Music, the world's largest music conglomerate. I can get Jermaine Dupri to produce your son's album. Do you know him? Janet Jackson's boyfriend of many years, and he produced Mariah Carey's last album. He's a real big shot. And Puff Daddy, you must know him, right? The young man, who called himself Scooter Brian, claimed to have close ties with many influential figures. The boy looked up at his mother, whose expression seemed to intimidate him. As I said before, I can take your son back and provide him with the best resources, but things have gotten a bit complicated. I have to propose some new conditions. Scooter gave the boy's mother a meaningful look. What do you want? The boy's mother immediately tightened her collar, looking somewhat nervous. What I mean is, your son is too young. To avoid some legal issues, I must become his guardian until he comes of age, Scooter said slowly. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.